Rust Harbor was a smear of holographic rust and real despair, clinging to the underbelly of Gallows Reach Station. The station itself hung in high orbit over the ochre disk of Ris 4, a planet of sand and forgotten sorrows. Down here, in the docks, the air smelled of ozone, superheated metal, and the sharp, ammonia-like tang of xylopian spice ale. Freighters groaned against their magnetic berths. Sirens wailed in the distance, and the thumping bass of distorted synth music bled from a dozen cantinas. Rowan Hale moved through the chaos with the practiced indifference of a man trying to be furniture. He was tall, built with a lean, wiry strength that was often mistaken for frailty. His black hair was cut short, practical, and his gray eyes were cold, reflecting the neon signs without absorbing their light. He wore the stained coveralls of a dock mechanic, which he was, and a heavy utility jacket, which he needed. Perched on his left shoulder, a stark white contrast to the grime, was Ceres. She was a creature of impossible beauty and conflicting signals. To the casual observer, she resembled a Terran ermine, or perhaps a Clysian snowcat, small, with luxurious albino fur so white it seemed to drink the light, and large, intelligent eyes the color of pale amethysts. She sat with regal poise, her small, tufted ears swiveling, taking in the throng. Most residents of Rust Harbor ignored them. Rowan was just another human scrapper. The pet was an expensive, fragile-looking accessory. Inside the last drop, the air was thicker, smelling of stale synthetics and unwashed bodies. Miners from the Ris 4 belt, their skin stained orange by the desert dust. Clinked glasses with hulking, four-armed Vorse callers. A pair of reptilian scrawl played a game of chance with flickering blades in a dark corner. Two prospectors, their scales the color of oxidized copper, watched Rowan pass. "Look at that," one hissed to his companion, gesturing with his snout. "The human, still carrying that thing." "Fragile," the other agreed, sipping his drink. "Like all of them. Good for lifting crates, I suppose. Good for following orders. But they break easily. Heard they used to be soldiers, centuries ago." "Soldiers!" The first one laughed, a dry, rasping sound. "Look at him! He looks like a stiff breeze would snap him. Their time is done. This is our galaxy now." Rowan ignored them. He ignored the stares. He was used to the casual condescension. Humans were the galaxy's janitors, its mechanics, its cargo haulers. They were the adaptable, short-lived, plentiful workforce scattered across the fringe. Their brief, violent history as interstellar warriors during the border wars was ancient history, deliberately buried by the Interstellar Accord. Here, humans were cheap labor, nothing more. He made his way to the bar, giving a short nod to Nayla, the proprietor. She was a stern, older woman of a species Rowan had never bothered to identify. Possessing 6 arms and an uncanny ability to pour a perfect drink while sighting down a heavy pulse rifle she kept under the counter. "The usual Rowan?" she asked, her voice a low thrum. "If the credit is good, Nyla," he said. "It is not," she replied flatly, but she poured the dark, viscous liquid into a glass anyway. "You have until Tuesday. After that, I start charging interest on the interest." "You're all heart. Do not flirt, human." "It is unbecoming." Before he could lift the glass, the atmosphere in the cantina shifted. The music seemed to stutter, the laughter dying in throats. The reinforced doors hissed open, admitting a blast of frigid, recycled air and a new group. There were 5 of them, a mismatched collection of species unified by the arrogant swagger of their walk and the small, silver insignia of the Drajan Syndicate pinned to their armor. Their leader was a Quarian, tall and thin as a reed, with skin like wet slate. He moved with a liquid grace, his dark eyes scanning the room as if cataloging everything he owned, which, in a way, he did. Flanking him was a mountainous brute, a bipedal wall of muscle with 4 thick arms and skin like cracked granite. The other 3 were enforcers, armed and alert, their expressions ranging from boredom to malice. The Quarian, Vex, sauntered to the center of the room. "Drinks," he announced, his voice smooth and condescending. "For my associates, and, he threw a high-value credit chit onto the floor. "For anyone who values the continued security the Drajan Syndicate provides." A few nervous cheers went up. Nyla's expression soured, but she began pouring. The Syndicate owned Gallows Reach, and everyone in it was either property or prey. Rowan kept his back to them, focusing on his drink. He wanted to finish it, collect his meager pay from Nyla for a side job rewiring her coolant system, and disappear back into the anonymity of his converted shipping container. Low profile, he thought, a familiar instruction to himself. "A laudable goal," a voice replied, inside his head. It was female, crisp, and laced with an irony so refined it was almost invisible. "Though I find their leader's choice of attire to be aggressively provocative. That shade of purple should be illegal on sentient beings." Rowan fought the urge to smile. He felt Saris shift on his shoulder. He smells ammonia and poor life choices. His lineage must be tragically shallow. "Saris, please, not now. I am merely observing." Is it not what you humans call people watching, or in this case, ambulatory disaster cataloging? Rowan took a sip of his drink. The silence in his head lasted perhaps 30 seconds. "He is looking at me." Rowan's shoulders tensed. "Ignore him. I believe he is contemplating whether I would make a good pair of slippers." "Saris, he is walking this way, and he has brought the large one, the one who looks like he lost an argument with a rock-crushing machine." Rowan did not turn. He watched the reflection in the polished chrome of the drink dispenser. The Quarian, Vex, and the brute, Grok, stopped behind him. Well, Vex purred. "What have we here?" Rowan said nothing. "A human laborer, far from his cargo bay, and he has a pet." Vex reached out a long, gray finger, stopping just short of Saris's fur. "A Clysian snow rat expensive. You must have saved for a long time. Human." Grok, the brute, chuckled. It sounded like gravel in a blender. "Pretty," he grunted. "Weak, like a little cloud. Poof." "I assure you, Captain," Saris's voice projected into his mind, sharp as glass. "If he touches me, I will rupture the primary nerve cluster behind his left optical sensor." Standing down, Rowan ordered silently, his voice firm. "That is an order." He could feel her indignant bristle through their bond, a spike of pure aristocratic offense. But she obeyed. "She's not for sale," Rowan said, his voice quiet, hoping to end it. "Oh, I am certain she is not," Vex sneered. "But perhaps she would prefer a better class of owner, someone who can afford to feed her something other than dock scraps." The brute, Grok, was drunker than his leader. He held a large, foaming mug of synthale. He leaned in, his massive, ugly face looming over Rowan's shoulder. "It looks thirsty. Vex," Grok rumbled. "The little white thing, it looks very, very thirsty." "Then by all means, Grok," Vex said, a cruel smile playing on his thin lips. "Show it our hospitality." Rowan knew what was to come a half-second before it did. He started to turn, but the brute was faster. With a delighted roar, Grok upended his mug. A cascade of thick amber foul-smelling ale poured directly over Ceres. She was instantly drenched. Her pristine white fur, usually so immaculate, was matted, dripping, and stained. The shock of the cold liquid made her entire body seize. The cantina, which had been holding its breath, erupted. Vex and his other enforcers howled with laughter. Vex pulled out a datapad and began recording. "A bath for the snow rat," he shouted. "Look at it, it is melting." Rowan went very still. The noise of the bar faded. The flashing lights seemed to dim. All he could feel, all he could sense was Ceres. She was not angry. She was not offended. She was shaking. It was a vibration that traveled from her small body, through his jacket, and into his bones. It was a tremor of pure, agonizing terror. And in his mind, he heard her. But it was not her voice. It was an echo, a psychic scream from a past he only knew in fragments. The cold, the nets, the hunters. It is cold, Rowan. It was the echo of a memory, of being hunted, of being captured, of a trauma so deep it defined her existence. And this stupid, drunken act of cruelty had ripped the wound wide open. Rowan Hale had spent 5 years building a new life. 5 years of being a nobody, a mechanic, a coward who owed money at bars. He had suppressed the captain, he had buried the soldier. He had done it all to keep this one small, magnificent, being safe. And they poured beer on her. "You made a mistake," Rowan said. His voice was not loud. It was almost conversational, but it cut through the laughter like a monomolecular blade. Vex stopped laughing, lowering his datapad. He looked genuinely surprised. "What did you say, human?" Rowan slowly, carefully, set his own glass on the bar. He did not look at Vex. He looked at Nayla, who was watching him, her 6 hands frozen, her main eyes wide. "Oh, rag! Nayla, if you please!" She slid a clean bar towel toward him. He picked it up and, with infinite tenderness, began to dab the sticky liquid from Ceres's fur. He cradled her against his chest, shielding her from view. "I said," Rowan repeated, his voice just as quiet, his eyes rising to meet the Quarian's. "You made a mistake." Vex's surprise curdled into annoyance. "A mistake a human laborer, stinking of engine grease, is correcting me, Grok. Remind me of the station's hierarchy." Grok stepped forward, cracking the knuckles on all 4 of his massive hands. "This is your last chance. Human," Vex warned. "Apologize for your insolence. Give us the pet as a gift, and we will only break one of your legs." "You are confused," Rowan said. He was still dabbing Ceres's fur, his gaze level and cold. "You are the one who is going to apologize." This was so unexpected, so completely outside the established order of Rust Harbor, that Vex actually laughed. "Apologize to you. Your entire species is a cosmic joke. You are good for lifting things and dying in pointless skirmishes. You are yesterday's news, human. A footnote." "That is the funny thing about history," Rowan said, his voice devoid of all warmth. He gently placed the shivering Ceres inside his jacket, zipping it up to his chest. "It has a habit of repeating itself." He finally turned his full attention to them. "You are going to apologize to the lady. You are going to pay Nayla 100 credits for the mess and the insult to her establishment. And then you are going to leave." Vex's face darkened. 100 credits, Grok. Kill him." Brute grinned, malice shining in his dull eyes. He reached out, not to punch, but to grab. His upper left hand, large enough to crush Rowan's skull, shot out to seize him by the throat. His other 3 hands moved to pin and tear. It was a fatal miscalculation. Rowan did not retreat. He moved forward, Stepping inside Brute's ponderous reach, the bar watched, expecting a messy, brutal death. What they saw was physics. 1. Rowan's left hand shot up, not to block the grab, but to meet it. He caught Grok's thick wrist, his fingers finding the nerve bundle. Simultaneously, he pivoted on his heel, using Brute's own immense forward momentum. 2. His right hand, stiffened into a blade, struck the inside of Grok's primary elbow joint. The sound of the hyperextended joint cracking was loud, a wet pop that echoed in the stunned silence. Grok bellowed, a sound of shock and sudden, incredible pain. His other arms flailed. 3. Rowan did not pause. He was still moving. He released the broken wrist and drove his right palm heel upward, under Brute's massive chin. Grok's head snapped back, his teeth clacking together with the force of a hydraulic press. 4. The Brute, all 600 pounds of him, became rigid. His eyes rolled back. He collapsed. He did not fall. He timbered, like a felled tree, crashing onto the deck with a sound that shook the glasses on the bar. The entire exchange had taken less than 2 seconds. One of the other enforcers, a Skrull with a reptilian crest, hissed and drew a curved vibro knife. He lunged, aiming to gut the human. Rowan was already moving. He grabbed the heavy, half-full mug Grok had dropped. He did not throw it. He met Skrull's lunge, smashing the thick ceramic mug directly into the alien's face. There was a crunch of bone and cartilage. The Skrull screamed, a high-pitched shriek, clutching his shattered snout as blood, dark blue, sprayed the floor. The other 2 enforcers froze, their hands hovering over their sidearms, suddenly unsure. Rowan turned to the leader. Vex was pale, his datapad still held loosely in his hand, the recording now showing the floor. He was staring at Grok's unmoving form. Rowan walked forward. He plucked the datapad from Vex's trembling fingers. He held it up, looked at the recording of his own floor pacing, and then deleted the file. He held the datapad out. "The apology," Rowan said. His voice had not changed. It was not angry. It was not triumphant. It was the voice of a man confirming a shipping manifest. Vex was shaking. And the credits," Rowan added, gesturing to Nyla. Vex fumbled for his credit chit, his movements clumsy. He threw it onto the bar. Take it all. Now the apology." "I apologize," Vex stammered, his eyes darting between Rowan and his fallen men. "Good. Now get your garbage out of here." Vex and the 2 remaining enforcers grabbed the bleeding Skrull and began the laborious process of dragging the unconscious Grok toward the door. The cantina was utterly silent, save for Skrull's wet moans and the scrape of Brute's armor on the floor. The doors hissed shut. Rowan turned back to the bar. He handed the datapad to Nyla. "For your trouble," he said. Nyla stared at him, her 6 arms rigid. She looked from him to the puddle of beer and blood on her floor, and back again. "That," she thrummed, "was not the action of a mechanic. Rowan Hale?" Rowan zipped his jacket higher, feeling Saris begin to calm, her shivering reduced to a slight tremor. "He spilled my drink," Rowan said. He left the chit on the bar and walked out, leaving the stunned, silent cantina behind him. As he walked, the Skrull with the broken face was being patched up by his comrades near the exit. The alien looked up, his eyes full of hate and fear. As Rowan passed under a flickering light, his jacket sleeve, pushed up during the fight, fell back into place. But the Skrull had seen it. Just for a moment, on Rowan's right forearm. He had seen the tattoo. Faded, gray-blue ink against pale skin. A geometric emblem of a black sunburst, pierced by 3 vertical bars. Skrull knew that mark. Every creature who had survived the Outer Rim sieges knew that mark. It was the insignia of the 7th Frontier Legion, the ghosts of Arcturus. Skrull's blood ran cold. He scrambled for his communicator, his fingers slipping in his own blood. He punched in a coded frequency, a direct line. "He is here," Skrull whispered, his voice thick with pain. "He is on Gallows Reach." The insignia was the 7th. A human ghost captain. "He is here." Far above the grime of Rust Harbor, in the sterile, silent command center of a Drajan Syndicate cruiser, Karl Drajan reviewed logistics reports. His chamber was a stark contrast to the station below, all polished obsidian and cool, blue holograms. He was a man of cold practicality, his features sharp, his demeanor absolute. A soft chime interrupted his work. A priority. One message from his enforcer team on the station. Strange. He opened the file. It was a garbled, terrified voice message from his Skrull operative. "Grok is down. Broken. It was the 7th. A human ghost captain. He is here." Karl paused. He terminated the logistics report. He steepled his fingers, his expression unreadable. He accessed the Syndicate's deep archive database. He cross-referenced the insignia of the 7th Legion with active files on RIS-4. A single file, flagged as dormant for 5 years, flashed onto his display. Hail, Rowan, Captain, 7th Legion, Ghost Company, status missing. Presume, Carol smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. It was the thin, cold smile of a mathematician solving a complex equation. "A human war captain," he murmured to the empty room. "Hiding in my harbor. Pretending to be a mechanic." He pulled up the meager file on Rowan, which included a blurry image of him entering the dock, the white pet visible on his shoulder, and with what appears to be a live Erixir artifact. He leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with sudden, intense interest. "Activate retrieval protocols," Karl Drajan commanded the ship's air. "Priority 1. I want a human captain, and I want his pet." By the next light cycle, the story was already legend. In the greasy cafeterias and pressurized workshops of Rust Harbor, the rumor mill churned at full capacity. The human mechanic, the quiet one, the one with the weirdly expensive white pet, had faced down Vex's crew. And he had won? Details, as ever, were fractured and magnified. "I heard he snapped Grok's arm," a piped fitter insisted, his voice low. "Snapped it in 3 places. With one hand." "Nah," countered a Skrull cargo loader, his snout still bruised from an unrelated brawl. "He had a military-grade disruptor hidden in his sleeve. Fried the brute's internal circuits before he could even twitch. Saw the smoke." "You saw nothing." Nayla's voice cut through the speculation. She was polishing a glass, her main set of eyes narrowed. "He did not use a disruptor. He did not snap his arm." The piped fitter leaned in. "Then what, Nyla?" "You were there." Nyla paused, her memory replaying the impossible. Fluid motion. He pushed him, and the brute fell down." The table stared at her. "That is it," the Skrull hissed, disbelieving. "He pushed him." "It was a very specific push," Nyla said, and returned to her polishing, ending the conversation. Most, however, dismissed it as fiction. A human taking out Grok impossible. Grok had probably slipped, and the human was just taking credit. Humans were laborers, not fighters. Everyone knew that, but a few. The ones who had been there, and the ones who made a living reading the station's subtle currents, began to watch. The quiet mechanic was no longer invisible. He was an anomaly. And in Rust Harbor, anomalies were opportunities or targets. Rowan felt the shift as soon as he entered the main concourse. The stairs were different. Yesterday, they were looks of dismissal. Today they were sharp, calculating, or fearful. He hated it. Fear was louder than contempt. He tried to maintain his routine, heading for Docking Bay 12, where a freelance contract awaited him diagnostics and repair on the drive core of a Corellian freighter. It was 3 days' work, enough to pay Nayla and restock his meager pantry. He walked past 2 syndicate-paid station guards. They did not just glance at him. They tracked him, their hands resting on their shock batons. He kept his gaze forward, his expression neutral. "They are staring at your tattoo," Saris noted from inside his jacket. Her voice in his head was dry. She was clean now, having spent 2 hours in a sonic freshener. But her pride was still deeply wounded. Or perhaps they are merely admiring your rugged, greasy mechanic aesthetic. It is difficult to tell. Low profile. Saris, I believe that particular strategy was voided when you performed percussive maintenance on a brute's central nervous system. We are now high profile. "Hail!" a voice shouted. Rowan stopped. It was Joel, the Dock Bay foreman, a portly Solarian whose amphibian-like skin always seemed slick with nervous sweat. I am here for the Corellian job." Yorl wrung his 3-fingered hands. He refused to meet Rowan's eyes, staring instead at a point somewhere past his left shoulder. Yes, about that. The job, it has been cancelled." Rowan felt a cold knot tighten in his stomach. "Cancelled. The captain hired me yesterday. He said it was urgent. He changed his mind. Yes. Found another mechanic, a better one. Sorry. Hail." Jorl scurried away before Rowan could reply. "He is lying," Saris stated, the obvious hanging in the air between them. "I know." Rowan stood there for a long moment. He could feel the eyes on his back, the guards, the dock workers, the silent, watchful figures in the shadowed alcoves. He turned and walked away, his boots heavy on the metal deck. His home was a cluster of 3 interconnected shipping containers in a derelict, unmonitored sector of the station designated J-13. The area was unlit, the air cold and thin. It was meant to be forgotten, which was precisely why he had chosen it. He keyed the maglock. The light flickered green, then red, then green again, and the door refused to unseal. "Allow me," Saris projected. A faint, psychic click resonated in his mind, and the lock mechanism sparked and opened. Rowan pushed the door open, his hand instinctively dropping to the heavy wrench on his belt. The place was a wreck. It was no simple robbery, it was a violation. His cot was slashed. His small hydration unit was smashed, water and filtration gel pooling on the floor. His diagnostic tools were scattered, and his spare power cells, his emergency supply, were gone. They had not taken his few, worthless personal items. They had taken his ability to work. They had taken his ability to survive. "Carl," Rowan said. The name, a cold exhale. This was not a random act of retaliation from Vex. This was systematic. This was the opening move of a siege. He closed the door, his jaw tight. "They ruined my warming blanket," Saris observed, her voice suddenly devoid of humor. She hopped out of his jacket and onto the ruined cot, her small, white paws delicately stepping over the shredded fabric. "This is an unacceptable breach of decorum." Rowan righted his small workbench, his mind racing. "They are boxing us in, cutting my work, my supplies. They want to flush us out." He sat heavily on his one remaining stool, burying his face in his hands. The adrenaline of the previous night was gone, replaced by the crushing weight of reality. He was one man, on a station owned by a crime lord, with no resources and no allies. "So, we fight," Saris said simply. "We cannot fight," Rowan snapped, his voice rough. "We fight. We expose ourselves. We expose you. This is exactly what I was trying to avoid. You were trying to hide, she countered, her mental voice sharp. She leaped from the cot to the bench, fixing him with her pale, amethyst eyes. They were unsettlingly intelligent. You've been hiding 5 years. You convinced yourself that if you pretended to be a beaten dog, the wolves would leave you alone. Look around. Captain, the wolves are at the door, and they are here because you finally showed your teeth. This is not a debate, Saris. This is survival. We cannot attract attention. I did not attract the attention. You are an albino elixir. Your very existence is attention. And you are the man who dismantled 4 syndicate enforcers in 12 seconds. Because one of them was rude, she retorted. You are blaming me for the consequences of your own suppressed nature. You enjoyed it. I did not, he growled. Your pulse rate accelerated by 34%. Your systolic pressure spiked. Your neurological pathways flooded with combat stimulants. You were alive. More alive than you have been since Al-Tariq. The planet's name hit him like a physical blow. Rowan flinched. Turning away from her, he braced his hands against the cold metal wall, his breath hitching. He was not in the container anymore. He was on Al-Tariq. The sky was not black. It was a churning, hellish orange from the orbital bombardment. The smoke was so thick it was like breathing knives. The concrete beneath him was shattered. He could hear Kale, his second in command, screaming as his armor's power cell overloaded and melted. Flash! The explosion. A high-yield plasma charge. It had vaporized his entire squad. The shockwave had thrown him backward, through a ferrocrete wall, and into the guts of a ruined municipal building. Darkness. The immense, crushing weight of a collapsed ceiling. Rebar and conduit pinned his legs. He could taste pulverized concrete and his own blood. He remembered the fading signal of his biomonitor, the calm, automated voice of his suit, announcing catastrophic failure. He was dying, alone. Then a sound, scraping, not the heavy hydraulics of a rescue mech. Something small, persistent. He tried to raise his rifle, but his arm was broken. Through a small gap in the debris, he saw it. A flash of white fur, matted with his own blood, an Arixir. His training screamed at him. Enemy. The Arixira swarm were the boogeymen of the border wars, the near-mythical hive-mind predators. But this one was small. An infant, perhaps. And it was albino. It looked wrong. An outcast. It was not attacking him. It was digging. Its small claws, impossibly sharp, were tearing at the smaller pieces of debris, trying to widen the hole. He had reached out, his gauntleted hand trembling. Go, he had whispered, dying. Get away. The creature had stopped. It had looked at him, and then it had touched its small head to the finger of his gauntlet. He felt a jolt, not physical, mental. A voice. Not a sound, but a pure, crystalline thought pushed directly into his brain. A voice that was ageless, aristocratic, and utterly indignant. You are a captain of the 7th Legion. You will not die in a hole. Smelling of ozone and failure? Get up. The connection had formed, a searing, symbiotic bond. He had felt her strength, her awareness, and she had taken his pain. His suit's automated medical systems, which had given up, suddenly flared to life, injecting a massive dose in response to the alien biosignal. He had roared. And, with the strength of the bond, he had pushed the rebar off his legs. He had crawled from the rubble, carrying the small, white creature. He was the only survivor of Ghost Company. Rowan, he snapped back to the present. He was breathing heavily. The metal of the container wall was cold against his forehead. Saris was on his shoulder, nudging his cheek with her head. Her mental voice was soft now, the sharp edges gone. It is just a memory. The fires are out. We are here. We are safe. For now, he whispered. He pushed himself off the wall. The fear was gone, replaced by a cold, familiar calm, the calm of the captain. They made a mistake, he said. Yes, they did. They came into my home. They declared war. So, what is the first move? Captain, the first move, Rowan said, checking the charge on his old kinetic sidearm, is to find out exactly what the enemy knows. High above, in the sterile, obsidian heart of the Syndicate flagship Carol's Will, the man himself was reviewing the data. The holographic display in his command center showed Rowan from a dozen different angles. Security footage from the last drop, grainy images from dock bay cameras, his forged mechanic's credentials. The 7th Frontier Legion, Carol murmured. The ghosts of Arcturus, commendations for valor at the siege of Xylos, sanctioned by the Accord for extreme prejudice at the Altaric incursion. And then gone. He stood opposite his chief advisor, Sillin, a Zeldari whose tall, emaciated frame was draped in robes that seemed to absorb the light. Zeldari were known for two things: flawless logic and a complete absence of morality. The report stated the human battalions were decommissioned, Sylin said, her voice a dry whisper. They were unstable, prone to unpredictable bonding. Unpredictable, no, Carl corrected. They were predictable. That was the problem. The Accord designed them to be the perfect weapon, adaptable, resilient, ferocious pack hunters. They gave them a taste of war, and the humans excelled at it. They became better soldiers than the Krogan, more cunning than the Solarians, more brutal than the Skrull. Carl brought up another image, a heavily redacted after-action report from Altaric. They did not just fight the Erixir. They interfaced with their technology. They bonded with their artifacts. The Accord realized they had not created a tool. They had forged a new master, a species that could command the ancient, terrifying power of the Erixir swarm. He gestured to the blurry image of Saris on Rowan's shoulder. So they buried them, executed the unstable ones, scrubbed the records, and scattered the rest across the galaxy as janitors and laborers. They convinced the galaxy that humans were a footnote, a failed experiment. Sylin processed this. And this one, this ghost captain, is here, hiding, guarding a living Erixir, an albino one. A queen, Carol breathed, his eyes gleaming. Or an empress, a key to the entire swarm legacy, a legacy the Interstellar Accord once buried, and the Coremind AI once purged. He turned to a separate, darker console, a chaotic, fractal pattern, pulsed slowly. Coremind, the super AI that managed the deep space grids, the ancient, godlike intelligence that Carl secretly communed with. Coremind sees the Erixir as chaos, Carol said. A variable that must be eliminated, but it cannot find the source. It cannot touch the swarm's hidden fleet. Sylin understood. But this captain can. The human is the key to the Erixir, and the Erixir is the key to the fleet. Exactly. Carol smiled. We capture them both. We use humans to unlock Erixir's power. We gain control of the Forgotten Fleet. We will have leverage against the Accord and Coremind. This entire sector will be mine. How do we proceed? Sylin asked. A full tactical strike on his habitat? No. Carl shook his head. He is a ghost. He is trained to survive. A direct assault on a cornered man is inefficient. He will fight, and he might damage the prize. We will not hunt the captain. We will squeeze the mechanic. We have cut his income. We have destroyed his shelter. Now, we will send the jackals. Let the station's bounty hunters wear him down. Let them see him bleed. When he is exhausted, desperate I'm true, and running we will take him. The next 48 hours were a descent into a cold hell. The pressure campaign was brutally effective. When Rowan tried to buy a new power cell from a merchant he had known for a year, the merchant suddenly could not access his inventory. When he tried to buy synthesized food paste, his credit line was suddenly inexplicably frozen. He tried to sign on for a day labor crew hauling cargo. The foreman, a hulking Vorsk, took one look at him and said, "We do not hire human liabilities." And then the hunters came. They were not syndicate professionals. They were local, a pair of Trandoshan brothers, smelling of blood musk and arrogance, who cornered him in a utility corridor. "Syndicate is paying 50,000 credits for the human," one hissed, drawing a vibro-axe. "And a bonus for the white rat. Behind you," Saris warned. Rowan ducked as the second brother lunged from a hatchway. He did not use his gun. He used his environment. He grabbed a loose power conduit and whipped it, the live current arcing and striking the first Trandoshan, sending him into violent convulsions. The second one charged. Rowan met him, not with strength, but with pure, cold mechanics. He used the alien's own momentum, redirecting the axe swing into a primary steam pipe. The pipe burst. Superheated steam screamed into the corridor. The Trandoshan shrieked, blinded and scalded. Rowan did not stay to finish it. He ran. He did not sleep for 2 days. He moved constantly, from the sublevels to the ventilation shafts, from the frozen cargo bays to the echoing, dark maintenance tunnels. He was being hunted. He was tired. He was hungry. And he was furious. He found a temporary refuge in a dark, unused conduit hub, high up near the station's outer hull. He could feel the cold of space through the metal. "We are trapped," Saris said. Her voice was thin. She was picking up his exhaustion, his hunger. Their bond went both ways. "We are not trapped. We are consolidating," Rowan said, his voice a low rasp. He was checking his kinetic pistol. He had 6 shots. 6 shots against a station full of enemies. That is what you call this consolidating. It feels remarkably like hiding in a sewer. "I am trying to protect you," he whispered, the old argument rising. "No." Her voice was a psychic shout that made him wince. "You are protecting yourself. You are protecting yourself from this." He felt a wave of pure, unfiltered her wash over him, the rage, the pride, the ancient, terrible power she kept chained. "You are the captain of the 7th Legion. I did not choose a mechanic. I did not pull a coward from the rubble of Altaric. I chose a warrior. That warrior got his entire company killed," Rowan roared, his voice echoing in the tunnel. "That warrior brought a sky of fire down on himself. I am done being that man." "You do not have a choice," she fired back. "Carl has made the choice for you. You can either be the captain and fight, or you can be the mechanic and die. Stop running from what you are." "Stand up." Rowan stared at her, his chest heaving, the small, white creature in his hand, trembling with a fury that could shatter stars. And she was right. He could not be the mechanic anymore. The mechanic was a lie. "Okay," he said. The word was quiet. Final. "Okay, no more running. We fight. But we fight smart. We need leverage. We need—" A new sound interrupted him. It was not the clang of boots or the hiss of a door. It was a station-wide chime, a high-priority alert. Not an emergency, but an arrival. "Docking Bay 3. Saris murmured, her senses extending far beyond the tunnel. "Official. High clearance. The sigil is the Interstellar Accord." Rowan's blood went cold. "The Accord. Here." That is not a coincidence, he said. He moved to a small, grimy viewport that overlooked the primary docking ring, the clean, well-lit area reserved for wealthy merchants and officials. A ship was maneuvering into its berth. It was sleek, silver, and utterly lethal. A diplomatic courier, which meant it was faster and better armed than half the cruisers in the sector. The insignia of the Accord Diplomatic Corps was emblazoned on its hull. Diplomats, Rowan muttered. What are they doing in a sewer like Gallows Reach? They smell the elixir, Ceres whispered. The Accord wants my kind dead even more than the Syndicate wants us alive. We are at a loose end. They failed to tie. The ship's ramp lowered. A delegation emerged. 2 security officers in polished, light blue armor, a political aide, and the woman leading them. Rowan froze. She moved with a fluid, confident grace that was part negotiator and part predator. Her uniform was crisp, black and silver. Her skin had a faint, silvery sheen, a hallmark of her Vidian heritage. Her hair was dark, pulled back in a severe, official knot. Even 100 yards away, he recognized her. Rowan, Ceres said, feeling the sudden, violent spike in his emotions. Your heart. It just shifted. You know this female. Mira, Rowan breathed. Mira Tal. She was his past, his lover during the war, the woman he had walked away from when he had buried the captain. And she was here, an envoy of the organization that had destroyed his life and hunted hers. He had to know. Was she here for him, or was it a terrible cosmic accident? Do not be a fool, Ceres pleaded, feeling his intent. She is Accord. She is the enemy. Move away from the viewport, but he was already moving. Not away, but toward her. He plunged back into the maintenance tunnels, his mind a whirlwind. He moved with a speed and silence the mechanic could never have managed. He had to see her. He had to know. He emerged into a small alcove, hidden behind a bank of generators, overlooking the diplomatic receiving area. Mira had dismissed her aides, who were arguing with the local port authority. She stood alone for a moment, looking out a massive viewport toward the grime of Rust Harbor far below, her expression unreadable. Rowan stepped out of the shadows. You are a long way from home. Envoy Tal. Mira spun. Her reaction was not that of a diplomat. It was pure, instinctive combat. Her hand blurred, drawing a sleek, silver particle pistol from a concealed holster. She had it leveled at his chest in less than a second, and then she saw his face. The gun wavered, the professional mask, the cold Vidian poise. It all shattered. Her violet eyes went wide, disbelief warring with a tide of emotions she had buried long ago. Rowan, she whispered. Her voice was choked. By the stars, it cannot be. You died at Altarique. We held a memorial. I mourned you. The reports were wrong, he said, holding his hands up slowly. They stared at each other across a gulf of 5 years. A war, and 1,000 lies. He looked different, harder, thinner, scarred. But the eyes were the same. The cold, gray eyes she had loved. Why? She asked, her voice breaking. Why did you let us think you were dead? It is complicated, Mira. Her gaze, sharp and analytical, even through her shock, moved over him. It took in the mechanic's stained coveralls, the new scar on his jaw, the exhaustion, and then her eyes dropped. She saw the slight bulge in his jacket, and before he could stop it, Ceres, agitated by the intense emotions, poked her small, white head out of the zipper, her amethyst eyes locking on Mira. Mira Tal's blood ran colder than the vacuum of space. The shock on her face was instantly replaced by a dawning, terrible understanding. The hand holding the pistol became rock steady. "Elixir," she breathed, her voice dropping to a deadly official whisper. "It is true. The rumors of a human anomaly, the reports of a surviving specimen, they were all referring to you." She raised the pistol, her aim no longer wavering. It was pointed directly at Saris. "Rowan Hale!" she commanded, her voice the flat, cold tone of an Accord envoy invoking martial law. "By the authority of the Interstellar Accord, you are to stand down, surrender the specimen, now." "Ro, this is a trap. Rowan!" Saris's voice screamed in his head. "She is not your past. She is your executioner." Rowan stood frozen, caught between the woman he had loved, the Empress he was bonded to, and the entire weight of a galaxy that wanted them both dead. The muzzle of the particle pistol did not waver. It was aimed past Rowan's head, directly at the small, white face peering from his jacket. "Mira, lower the weapon," Rowan said, his voice a low, steady command. He did not move his hands. "I cannot do that, Captain," she replied, her voice strained, the professional mask of the envoy locking back into place. "That specimen is a Class 1 biothreat, according to Accord Treaty. I am bound by duty." "She is lying," Saris projected, her thought sharp and cold in Rowan's mind. "She is not bound by duty. She is terrified. Her heart rate is 142 beats per minute." "She's not a specimen," Rowan said, his eyes locked on Mira's. "And you know I'm not a captain anymore. I am just a mechanic. You are pointing a gun at my pet." The word pet sounded absurd, even to him. Mira's violet eyes narrowed. The pain of their reunion was being rapidly overwritten by the shock of his transgression. Pet, Rowan, I read the files. I read the real files from Altarique, the ones they buried, the ones that described what the Elixir did. What you did, you think I do not know what I am looking at." "You are looking at the past," Rowan said, taking a microscopic step to his left, angling his body to better shield Saris. "That war is over." "Is it?" she countered, her voice dangerously soft. "You are here. It is here. The Syndicate is suddenly hunting for a human anomaly and a ghost pet. The CoreMind AI is diverting orbital resources to this sector for the first time in a decade. The war is not over. Rowan, you just brought it home." The accusation hung in the sterile air of the docking bay. Her security detail was still occupied with the Port Authority, their backs to this silent drama. "Mira," he said, and he let the name soften, letting 5 years of buried history flood into it. "I did not die at Altarique. I almost did. She saved me, just as I saved her. We are bonded. We are all that is left." Mira flinched. The word bonded was a kill switch. It was the very thing the Accord had feared. The reason the human legions had been purged. "You let me mourn you," she whispered. The gun finally, almost imperceptibly, lowering by a single degree. The envoy was fading, and the woman he knew was surfacing. "I put your name on the memorial wall at Vesta. I read your eulogy. All this time you were just hiding." "I was protecting her," he said. "And protecting everyone else from her. From what she represents. Now please, lower the gun. We cannot have this conversation here. Not now." He saw the internal war in her face. Duty versus history. The law versus the man she had loved. Finally, with a sharp, defeated exhale, Mira snapped the pistol back into its concealed holster. "You have 1 hour. Rowan, my ship. We talk. You, me, and her. You do not show. I file my report. And I promise you, The fleet that arrives will not be as polite as I am. She turned, her back rigid, and strode toward her aides without a backward glance. The perfect image of an envoy in control. I do not like her, Saris stated flatly from his jacket. She just pointed a gun at your head. What is there to like? Rowan murmured, already melting back into the shadows of the maintenance tunnels. It is not the gun, Saris replied, an unusual note of jealousy in her voice. This is how you looked at her. Your pupils dilated. A physiological response reserved for, well, for her. Apparently. Ceres. This is no time. It is precisely the time. We are being hunted by a crime syndicate, and now, possibly, by your old flame, who happens to be a government agent. I believe my observations on your biochemistry are extremely relevant. Rowan ignored her, his mind already calculating. 1 hour. He had to move fast. He left Saris at the ruined container, a place he knew was now compromised, but it was the only short-term option. Stay here. Do not move. Do not make a sound. I will be back in 30 minutes. I am going to find an ally. An ally. Or this Dex person you have been muttering about, one and the same. I disapprove. You are leaving me alone, unarmed. You are the most dangerous thing on this station. Serfs, you are anything but unarmed. He sealed the door, his system's override code temporarily locking the mechanism. He moved quickly, using the knowledge of the station's guts he had acquired over 5 years. He needed Dex, he needed eyes and ears. He was gone for perhaps 20 minutes. Saris, alone in the dark, cold container, was practicing a form of elixir meditation, focusing her consciousness, when she heard the sound. Not at the door. At the hull. A cutting torch. A high-energy plasma sizzle. Predictable, she thought to herself, not moving from her ruined warming blanket. The metal plate on the side of the container, weakened by the cutting, was kicked inward with a crash. 3 figures tumbled through, weapons raised, bounty hunters, a Kregan with his insectoid mandibles, and the 2 Trandoshan brothers he had blinded and electrocuted. The Trandoshans looked furious, their scales covered in fresh burn salve. No gun this time. The Kregan hissed, his multifaceted eyes scanning the dark, ruined room. No steam pipes, just the pet. The Syndicate wants it alive, the first Trandoshan growled. Find it. I smell it, the second one said, sniffing the air. White fur and fear. He was wrong. It was not fear. It was annoyance. Alive, Saris thought. That complicates things. Killing them would be cleaner. The Kregans spotted her. She was sitting on the cot, a small, white, seemingly terrified creature, trembling in the beam of his helmet light. There, he chittered. Easy. A 50,000 credit bonus. He lunged, a reinforced capture net in his hands. He was halfway across the room when Saris pushed. It was not a physical push, it was a mental one. A sliver of pure, refined elixir command code inserted directly into his primitive predator brain. The Kregan stopped dead. He stared at the Trandoshan brother to his left. What? Asked Trandoshan, lowering his club. The Kregan's mandibles clicked. You! He hissed, his voice suddenly full of a venomous, paranoid rage. You were going to take the bonus for yourself. You were going to cut me out. What are you talking about? Bug. He is right. The second Trandoshan suddenly roared, as Saris's influence spread, amplifying their natural greed and suspicion. I saw you looking at the net. You were going to net us. I was not. Liar. The Kregan shrieked and leaped, not at Saris, but at the first Trendoshan. The three of them collapsed into a chaotic, roaring, punching, and biting mass of limbs and claws. They were not trying to subdue each other. They were trying to kill each other, each one utterly convinced the other two were plotting betrayal. Saris watched for a moment, tilting her head. Humans call this irony, she mused. She hopped off the cot, walked calmly past the screaming brawl, and slipped out the hole they had cut in the hull. By the time Rowan returned with Dex, a jittery, young human with a shock of blue hair and 2 glowing data ports on his temple, the container was filled with syndicate-paid station guards, pulling the 3 nearly dead bounty hunters apart. The rumor that spread through the station this time was new. It was not a human mechanic. It was about his pet, the pet that had made 3 hardened killers tear each other to pieces. The ghost captain now had a demon pet. On board the Accord courier, Vesta's promise. Miratal was in her private quarters. The room was sterile, Vidian gray, and minimalist. She was staring at a pulsing red icon on her secure console. A classified, eyes-only directive from Accord High Command received 30 minutes ago. It was not a request. It was an order, triggered by her own initial proximity report. Priority 0 Delta. Subject anomaly, Erixir. Albino designate, confirmation. Live. Protocol activate core mind. Directive. You are ordered to provide locational telemetry and biological data. Core mind units will assume sanitization protocol. The asset is to be considered non-viable. Purge with extreme prejudice. Mira read the words again. Purge with extreme prejudice. The same phrase they had used to condemn the 7th Legion. The same phrase that had led to the massacre at Altariq. Her mission was not to investigate. It was to confirm. She was a trigger, and she had just confirmed. If she sent the data, Coremind the cold, godlike AI that managed the deep space grids would act. It would not send a fleet. It would send an extermination. It would likely wipe Rust Harbor off the station to ensure the infection was contained. It would kill hundreds. And it would kill Rowan. Her hand hovered over the console. Her duty was clear. The Erixir swarm was a plague. Saris was the last carrier. But Rowan, alive. He had survived Altariq. He had survived 5 years alone, protecting that thing. And she, his former lover, was now being ordered to be his executioner. "Damn you, Rowan," she whispered, her hand trembling. "Damn you for surviving." The last drop was a wreck. Nyla had boarded up the entrance where Grok had fallen, and half the tables were smashed. It was dark, smelling of stale ale and ozone. Rowan, Mira, and Saris, now perched defiantly on the bar, were the only occupants. Nyla had given Rowan the key. "Do not break anything else," she had said. "This is a mistake," Mira said, her arms crossed. She had come alone, against every security protocol. "I should have you arrested. I should have it terminated." "But you did not," Rowan said. He was leaning against the bar, his face shadowed. "You came." "I came to tell you to run," Mira said, her voice low and urgent. "Take it and run. Get to the outer rim. Find a rogue planet. And bury yourselves. I have an order. Rowan. An order to report your location. To activate Coremind." "And what do you think Coremind will do?" Rowan asked. "I know what it will do. It will sanitize. It will burn this station down to its metal studs to kill one small white creature." She is correct. Saris's voice entered both their minds. Mira gasped and recoiled, her hand flying to her pistol. She stared at Saris, her eyes wide with a new horror. "It spoke in my head." "I am not an it," Saris replied, her mental voice sharp, projecting directly to the envoy. I am Ceres, Empress in exile of the Elixir, and I am bonded to this man, just as your kind once were." "What does she mean?" Mira looked at Rowan, pleadingly. "She means the Accord lied. Mira, about everything. About the war, about why the legions were created, about what the Elixir were." "They were monsters," Mira shot back. "They consumed whole systems. And who do you think taught us how Ceres's voice was filled with an ancient, cold anger? Your interstellar accord was not formed for peace. It was formed to survive. It was created by a dozen species cowering in the dark, terrified of what was older than them. And when they found us, they did not offer peace. They offered war. And when they could not win that war, they created your species, Rowan, to be their perfect, empathic, savage weapon." Rowan looked down. "She's not entirely wrong." "That is revisionist history, propaganda," Mira protested, but her voice wavered. "Is it?" Rowan looked up, his gray eyes piercing. "Why were we purged? Mira, why was the 7th Legion, the most decorated unit in the war, suddenly declared unstable and hunted? It was because we did not just fight them. We understood them. We started bonding. Like this. The Accord did not want soldiers. They wanted attack dogs. And they discovered their dogs were learning to speak to the wolves." The silence in the bar was heavy, broken only by the distant hum of the station. "This," Mira said, gesturing at Ceres, "is the key to that hive mind. A mind that can control billions. A weapon, Rowan. I do not care about the history. I care about the future. If Karl Drajan gets his hands on her, or if Cormine decides she is a threat to be purged." "Karl already knows," Rowan interrupted. "He is the one who sent the bounty hunters." "Then you have to give her to me," Mira insisted. "Let the Accord contain her. It is the only way." "Contain her like a virus," Rowan said, his voice dropping. "She is the only reason I am alive. She is my family. I will not let you, or the Accord, or Carol put her in a cage, or in a grave. Then you are choosing her over the safety of this entire station." "He is choosing justice," Ceres projected, "something your Accord knows very little about. You come here with your laws and your guns, standing on the ruins of my people, and you dare to call us the catastrophe." The three of them were at an impasse. 3 points of a triangle, defined by love, duty, and survival. The air was thick with 5 years of unspoken words, of grief, of betrayal. "Rowan," Mira said, her voice finally breaking, "I cannot protect you if you do not let me." "I am not asking for your protection, Mira. I am asking for your trust." Before she could answer, Rowan's small, wrist-mounted communicator, a jury-rigged device Dex had given him, chirped. He looked at it. A message from Dex. "Captain. Bad. Very, very bad." In his flagship's command center, Karl Drajan was terminating his communion with Cormind. The fractal pattern on screen faded. "The deal is struck," Carol told Silan. Silan's wispy form tilted head. The AI agreed. "It did?" A rare, genuine smile touched Carol's lips. "It is so logical. It desires the Elixir node for study and purging. I desire the ancient drone fleet. I offered it a trade live data, and the capture of the node in exchange for custodianship of the Aegis-class drones. I agreed. It believes I am its agent. And are you?" "I am an agent of my own ambition, Silan. Cormind will get its data, and I will get my fleet. And once I have the fleet, I will get the node for myself. AI has underestimated the human capacity for deception." He turned to his tactical display. "The envoy's arrival complicates things, but only slightly. It forces my hand. No more squeezing. It is time to crack the nut. He pressed a key. Alert all Syndicate assets on Gallows Reach. We are initiating a surgical operation. Send in the drones. Level Rust Harbor, section by section, until the human and his pet run out of hiding places. Alarms blared across Rust Harbor, not the standard arrival chime. A wailing, chaotic siren. "What is that?" Mira demanded, drawing her pistol. "That," Rowan said, looking at the message from Dex, "is what Carol calls a surgical operation." The first explosion rocked the cantina. Plaster and wiring fell from the ceiling. "He is attacking the harbor," Rowan said, his voice flat. All emotion gone, replaced by the cold calculus of the captain. "He is burning it down to find us." He looked at Mira. "Your duty just got complicated. Envoy, are you going to arrest me, or are you going to help me save these people?" He did not wait for an answer. He kicked open the boarded-up door and ran out into the chaos. Rust Harbor was a war zone. Black, sleek. Syndicate drones, not police models, but military-grade, were swarming the corridors. They moved in lethal, 3-unit formations, firing high-velocity laser bolts at any and all targets. Civilians were screaming, running, caught in a crossfire. "This is not a capture op," Mira yelled over the din, running behind him. "This is a massacre." "He is flushing us out," Rowan yelled back. He saw a Vorsk miner go down, his leg seared by a laser. "Dex, talk to me." "Captain, they are everywhere." Dex's panicked voice squawked from the comm. "They are targeting all known associates. Nayla's bar, my workshop, the J-13 containers they are. Dex, get a channel. A station-wide channel. Now I cannot. They are locking me out." Rowan skidded to a halt at a major intersection. A dozen civilians were pinned down behind a flimsy cargo hauler, 3 drones advancing on them. "Mira, cover me! With what they are armored. Just shoot." Rowan broke from cover. He ran at the drones. He was not a mechanic. He was a ghost. He moved like one. He slid, grabbing a heavy, discarded power shuttle from the ground, and hurled it with all his strength at the lead drone. It sparked off the armor. But it bought him a second. He vaulted over a railing, dropping to the level below, right behind the drone formation. He fired his kinetic pistol twice. The slugs punched through the weaker rear armor of one drone, and it exploded. The other 2 whirled. Mira fired her particle pistol, the silver beam splashing harmlessly against their front plating. Rowan was already moving, using the wreckage as cover. He was a commander without a squad, a captain without a ship. He saw a group of miners, led by the same pipe fitter from the cafeteria, cowering in an alcove. "You!" Rowan roared, and the voice of the captain cut through the panic. "Get to the central conduit move decks. Override the pressure valves on level 3. Corridor 9. Now." "But, Captain, that will vent the—" "Just do it." The miners ran. The drones pursued. A second later, a massive hiss echoed through the hall as a primary coolant pipe, sabotaged by Dex, burst, flash freezing one of the drones in place. "He is organizing them," Mira said, stunned, as she watched civilians, miners, and scrappers begin to move, not as a mob, but as a unit, following the barks of the human mechanic. The battle was desperate. They were outgunned, outnumbered. A drone cornered a human family, a mother, a father, 2 small children in a dead-end corridor. Rowan was too far away, pinned by 2 other drones. "Rowan," Mira screamed. "I cannot get there." He felt a surge of cold, terrible power, a spike of shared adrenaline and pure, undiluted fury from the bond. "I will not allow this." Saris's voice resonated, not just in his head, but in Mira's as well. The small, white creature leaped from Rowan's jacket. She landed on a high girder overlooking the scene, and she changed. It was not a physical transformation. It was a change in presence. She was no longer a small, frightened pet. She seemed to swell, not in size but in power. Her fur bristled, and her amethyst eyes glowed with an ancient, terrifying light. She looked regal. She looked like an empress. She opened her mouth, and a soundless, psychic scream erupted from her. A wave of pure command and malice. The drone that was advancing on the family stopped. Its targeting laser, aimed at the child, wavered. It turned. It fired its lasers, not at the family, but at its two drone partners, blasting them into scrap. Then, as if its own logic circuits had been turned inside out, it raised its weapon, aimed it at its own power core, and fired, destroying itself in a flash of blue-white plasma. The corridor was silent. The family stared, wide-eyed, not at their savior Rowan, but at the small, white creature on the girder, which now looked, once again, like a simple pet, shaking slightly from the exertion. Mira lowered her pistol. Her face was white as Ceres's fur. The blood drained from her face. She had been trained to spot threats. She knew what she was seeing. "By the stars," she whispered, her voice shaking. "She is not just an Aryxir. She is a node. A primary hive node. A true empress." She looked at Rowan, her eyes filled with a new, profound terror. The report she had to send was not about a surviving specimen. It was about the resurrection of the Aryxir Swarm's central command. If she sent this, Coremind would not just sanitize the station. It would be called a crusade. The remaining drones, their tactical link, broken by the loss of their command unit, abruptly halted. They turned, and in perfect unison, retreated from Rust Harbor. The silence they left behind was filled with groans, sobs, and the hiss of fires. "They are running!" Dex's voice came over the comm, shaky. "No," Rowan said, reloading his pistol with his last clip. "They are not running. They are regrouping. That was just a probe." He was right. Dex's voice returned, now pitched with pure panic. "Captain! Oh, gods! Captain, get to a viewport! High orbit!" Rowan, Mira, and Ceres moved to a shattered window overlooking the black of space. Above them, tearing through the fabric of hyperspace, a dozen new contacts emerged. Not drones, not frigates, cruisers, battle carriers, a full syndicate fleet. They were sleek, black, and bristling with weapons. They moved to form a perfect, inescapable blockade around Gallows Reach. Karl, Drajan's flagship, the Carol's Will, took point position, its main batteries already glowing, aimed at the station. "He is here," Mira whispered. "He has blockaded the station. He is preparing to purge us all." And in the cold, dark, digital space between the ships, the Coremind AI, having received its first tantalizing data packet on the Aryxir node from Carol's drones, made a new calculation. The deal was good. A new directive flashed across its myriad processors. Download commencing. Primary systems, target Gallows Reach. Deployment, Aegis Fleet. The fleet was a scar on the black canvas of space. 12 ships, not frigates, not corvettes. 12 syndicate cruisers and battle carriers, moving with the slow, arrogant menace of apex predators. They were matte black, designed to absorb sensor pings, and bristled with kinetic batteries and plasma lances. They eclipsed the stars. Down in Rust Harbor, the station-wide alert was no longer a siren. It was a death rattle. Panic, a raw, screaming thing, finally broke free. People poured from the side corridors, running, screaming, trampling one another in a blind rush to escape a cage that had no exit. Gallows Reach, a sprawling, rusty, pressurized city in a can, had only one defense against a military fleet it was too insignificant to bother destroying. Karl Drajan had just revoked that defense. "This is a flagrant violation of Accord territory," Mira whispered, her face pale as she stood beside Rowan at the shattered viewport. The authority in her voice was gone, replaced by disbelief. "Karl does not care about the Accord," Rowan said, his voice flat. He watched the lead cruiser, the Carroll's Will, maneuver into a high-orbit firing position. He is the territory. He owns the local officials. He owns the Port Authority. And now, he is calling in the lease. A bone-jarring thud shook the entire station, throwing dust from the ceiling. A warning shot. A plasma lance grazing the station's outermost cargo arms, melting 20,000 tons of metal into incandescent slag. The screaming in the concourse became a single, unified shriek. "We have to run," Mira said, grabbing his arm. "My courier. It is fast. We can slip through the blockade. Send a report to High Command." Rowan did not move. He looked at the chaos. He looked at the family he had saved earlier, the mother clutching her children, staring at him with wide, terrified eyes. "They are all going to die," Saris's voice whispered in his mind. She was on his shoulder, a small, white knot of tension. "Because of us." "No," Rowan said. "Rowan, this is not a fight," Mira insisted, her voice rising with desperation. "This is an execution. You cannot fight a fleet." "No," he repeated. "I am done running." He turned from the viewport and walked into the tide of terrified civilians. He moved against the current, a single, solid object in a river of panic. He climbed onto a large, overturned cargo hauler, the same one civilians had hidden behind minutes earlier. He stood there, the mechanic's grease-stained coveralls his only uniform, the low, red emergency lights casting his face in shadow. He did not shout. "He is here for me." His voice, the captain's voice, cut through the noise. It was not loud, but it carried the absolute, unshakable weight of command. The running slowed. A few people stopped. "Karl Drajan is here for me, and for her," he pointed to Saris. "He just fired on your homes to prove a point. He is giving you a choice: hand us over, or die with us." A man shouted from the crowd, his voice cracking. "Then go. Give yourself up. Do not kill us all." "And you think he will let you live?" Rowan shot back. "You think the man who just vaporized your cargo docks gives a single damn about your lives? He has broken the one rule in the Outer Rim. He has brought a war fleet to a civilian station. He is not here to negotiate. He is here to clean the house. He cannot let witnesses to this atrocity survive." He looked over at the crowd, miners, scrappers, haulers, engineers, the desperate and the lost. "You have spent your lives bowing to the syndicate, paying their taxes, looking the other way when their thugs beat your neighbors. Look where it has gotten you. You have one choice. It is the only one you have ever had. You can die on your knees, begging. Or you can stand up, just once, and make the bastard pay for every meter of your home." He paused, letting the words sink into the sudden, stunned silence. "He thinks you are vermin. He thinks he can burn this nest and be done with it. I say we show him how deep the nest goes, and how hard the vermin can bite." No one cheered. The time for cheering was long past, but the running stopped. The panic subsided, replaced by a cold, terrified, and unfamiliar resolve. Nayla, the bar owner, emerged from the ruins of the last drop, a heavy pulse rifle in her lower arms, 2 more pistols holstered on her belt. She walked to the base of the hauler and looked up. "What are your orders, Captain?" She thrummed. Rowan looked down at her. and for the first time in 5 years, the ghost of a smile touched his lips. He was no longer a mechanic. He was home. He leaped down, his mind already a tactical map. All right, listen up. This is not a fortress. It is a sieve. We cannot stop them, but we can make them bleed. He began issuing orders, his voice crisp, precise, and certain. Dex, are you on this channel? Yes, Captain. The young hacker's voice crackled over Rowan's wristcom. Carl is starting with drones and boarding parties. He wants us alive, so he will send ground troops before he glasses the station. I want you in the station's core. I want every bulkhead, every atmospheric scrubbed, every internal sensor under your control. You are our eyes, and you are our trapdoor. Can you do it? I can try, Captain. The Syndicate has firewalls. You have 5 minutes. Team Alpha Nayla, I need choke points. You know every scoundrel on the station. Get the miners with their laser cutters. Get the haulers with their cargo mechs. Barricade the main concourse. Weld the doors. We make this deck a kill box. Nayla nodded, her 6 arms already distributing weapons from a crate she had salvaged. Team Bravo engineers and scrappers, I want you in the tunnels. Rig every power conduit to overload. Turn the maintenance shafts into electrical traps. If it moves and it is not one of us, fry it. A dozen greasy, grim-faced workers nodded and peeled off, running for the tunnels. The rest of you non-combatants, children, get to the old biodomes on level 7, the hydroponics section. They are shielded and have their own life support. Go, now. The crowd finally broke, but this time with purpose. Mira, Rowan said, turning to her. I am not one of your soldiers. Rowan, she said, her particle pistol already in her hand. I know you are better. That ship of yours, can it fight? It is a diplomatic courier. It has 2 forward particle lances and military-grade shields. It is designed to run. Good, I want you to run. Fast. Get to your ship. I need you in the void. You are our distraction. You are the gnat. Draw their fire. Keep their big guns busy. I need to buy Dex time to take the station. Mira stared at him. You want me to take on a battle fleet, alone? You will not be alone. You have the best tactical mind in the 7th Legion in your ear. He tapped his comm. Now go. We have maybe 10 minutes before the first wave hits. Mira hesitated, her expression a storm of conflict. Rowan, the report, core mind. 1 war at a time. Envoy, he said softly. Save the people in front of you. She nodded, the envoy replaced by the soldier she used to be. Try not to die. Again. That is the plan. She sprinted for the diplomatic docking bay. The first wave hit exactly 8 minutes later. It was not subtle. Boarding pods, fired like torpedoes, punched straight through the station's weaker hull sections. They impacted in the market, the cargo bays, and the main concourse. Syndicate shock troops poured out, clad in black armor. Supported by the same sleek, murderous drones from the first attack, the battle for Gallows Reach began. Nayla, Rowan yelled, crouched behind a barricade of welded-together mining carts. Hold the line, fire on my mark. The first squad of troops advanced, firing precise bursts. Dex that junction. Now, the Syndicate squad was halfway across the concourse when a 2-ton cargo lifter, its magnetic clamps released by Dex, dropped from the ceiling, crushing 3 of them. Mark! Rowan bellowed. Nayla and the miners opened up with a barrage of improvised weapons, pulse rifles, plasma cutters, and rivet guns that fired white-hot spikes. The Syndicate squad, caught in the open, was torn apart. Captain, Mira's voice crackled, laced with static and the whine of engines. I am airborne, and they are very unhappy to see me. Rowan could picture it, the small, silver courier ship, dancing between the lumbering cruisers, its particle lances flashing. Just keep them busy. Mira, draw them off. That is not the problem. Rowan, their fighter screens are launching dozens of them. I cannot. Her transmission dissolved into a scream of static. Mira, Mira, talk to me. Silence. She is alive, Saris whispered from his collar, but her shields are at 40%. She is in trouble. And so are we. A new sound. A heavy, rhythmic thump, thump, thump. A hatch at the far end of the concourse was being cut open. A heavy assault team. Nyla, fall back, level 2. Rowan ordered, firing his own pistol. We cannot. They are coming from behind. They were flanked. A second team of drones was melting a path through the floor. Rowan, Saris said, her voice tight with pain. The drones. They are part of Core Mind. I can feel it. It is cold. It stinks of logic. Can you stop them? I stopped one before. That was 3. This is what he looked like. 20 drones, swarming into the corridor. It will hurt. I know, but they are going to slaughter us. Saris went rigid on his shoulder. She closed her amethyst eyes. She reached out with her mind, not with the surgical push she had used on the bounty hunters, but with the raw, terrifying command code of an empress. She did not try to control them all. She found the central command node in their network, and she squeezed. In the void, Mira, dodging missiles from 3 fighters, saw 2 of them suddenly stop, turn, and fire on their own wingman before plowing into each other. In the concourse, the 20 drones froze. Their targeting lasers went haywire. 10 of them turned and opened fire on the other 10. Then, they began methodically firing into the Syndicate ground troops. The tide of the battle turned in an instant. But the victory was costly. Saris screamed in Rowan's mind. It was not a sound of pain, but of agony. Of a million digitized souls crying out. She was not just feeling her own power. She was feeling the echoes of the ancient war, the trauma of the Core Mind's original programming, the memory of her entire species being hunted. It is too much, she cried, collapsing inside his jacket, the memory of the fire they are burning. Saris, come back. He clutched her through the fabric, anchoring her. Anchor on me. It is just a memory. I am here. You are here. She gasped, her small body trembling violently, and the connection snapped. The remaining drones went inert, dropping to the deck. Rowan was breathing heavily, his own mind reeling from the psychic feedback. The momentary respite was broken by a station-wide broadcast. Karl Drajan's face appeared on every remaining monitor. He looked calm. He looked amused. A valiant effort. His voice echoed, amplified, through every corridor. Your human captain is, indeed, resourceful. And the Erixer node is more powerful than I imagined. But this changes nothing. His image gazed down, as if looking at every one of them. People of Gallows Reach, this is my final offer. I have lost men. I have lost assets. I am no longer in a merciful mood. But I am a practical man. I am here for the human, Rowan Hale, and the albino creature. Deliver them to me, and my fleet will withdraw. Your station will be spared. He smiled. It was a serpent's smile. Fail to do so, and I will begin firing my main batteries, one section at a time. I will start with the biodomes. You have 10 minutes. The broadcast cut. The silence that followed was worse than the explosions. Rowan stood up, his kinetic pistol empty, his face grim. Captain, Dex's voice was a whisper. The biodomes are where the children are. Rowan looked at the miners and scrappers around him. Their faces were pale, streaked with soot and terror. Jorl, the foreman who had lost Rowan his job, stepped forward. His face was a mask of grief. His brother had died at the first barricade. He is right, Jorel stammered. "Our families. He is only here for you. Hale, this is your fault." "It is not his fault," Dex's voice shouted over the comm. "Is it not?" another woman cried. "We were fine, we were alive. Then you had to fight, and now our children are going to burn." A group of a dozen defenders, their nerve broken, turned. They were not angry anymore. They were just desperate. They started to walk toward Rowan. Just give yourself up," Jorel pleaded. "One man. For all of us." "It is logical." Mira, who had returned after her ship's shields failed, landed her damaged courier in the concourse. She stepped out, particle pistol raised. "Stand back," she ordered. "All of you." "He is saving your lives." "He is ending them," Jorel shouted. Rowan put a hand on Mira's arm, lowering her weapon. He looked at the circle of desperate faces. He saw the end. He saw Al-Tariq. "It is all right, Mira. It is their choice." "Rowan." "No," Saris protested, her voice weak. "It is okay, serfs. We cannot ask them to sacrifice their children for us." He was about to step forward. "Are you all insane?" Nayla's voice, a deep, resonant thrum, cut through the tension. She limped forward, her lower left arm gone, cauterized at the elbow by a drone's laser. She was cradling her heavy pulse rifle, her main eyes blazing. "You are going to trust the word of the man who just butchered your neighbors," she demanded. "You think Karl Drazen, the man who taxes your air, is going to let you live after you have seen his true face. He is not giving you a choice. He is giving you an excuse to die like cowards." She stopped, leaning heavily on her rifle, and stared at Jorel. "I have been on this station for 30 years. I have seen Kriegans, Skrull, and Vorsk. I have seen them all come and go. They are strong, they are fast, and they are all out for themselves." She turned, her gaze softening as she looked at Rowan. "Then there are the humans. They are small. They break easy, they are emotional." She made the word sound like a compliment. "This one has owed me 20 credits for almost a year. He is stubborn. He is frustrating. He fixed my water purifier 3 times and never asked for a credit. He pulled Jorel's own son from a jammed trash compactor, and Jorel knows it." Jorel looked at the floor, shamed. "Humans," Nyla said, her voice ringing with a strange, fierce pride, "are the only species in this galaxy that stick. They are the only ones who will die for a principle. They are the only ones who believe in a cause bigger than their own hide. I do not know if he is a captain or a mechanic. I know he is reliable. I am standing with the human." The defiant, shamed miners turned back to the barricade. The moment of betrayal was broken. Rowan looked at Nayla, his throat tight. "Nayla, just save us, Captain," she said, giving him a grim smile. "And we will call the 20 credits even." He nodded. "Dex, Mira, Nayla, this is the last stand. We hold." The world exploded. Rowan did not even hear the shot. He just saw the wall of white light. Karl had not waited 10 minutes. He had seen his ultimatum fail. A single beam from the Carol's Will main battery lanced across space. It did not hit the biodomes. It hit the main concourse. It hit the last drop. The bar, the center of their community. The symbol of their defiance was vaporized in 1/10 of a second. The shockwave was apocalyptic. The concourse, the barricades, the defending miners all were tossed like leaves in a firestorm. Rowan and Mira were thrown backward, crashing into a bulkhead. The station's atmosphere vented into space with a deafening, final roar. Emergency shields snapped into place, sealing the breach, but the damage was done. Rowan pulled himself up, his ears ringing. The concourse was a ruin, open to the void. His suit's emergency overlay flashed. Warning of low pressure. Nayla, he roared, his voice hoarse. He saw her. She had been standing where the bar was. She had taken the brunt of the blast. She was thrown 30 meters. A broken, six-armed doll, pinned beneath a twisted steel girder. He ran to her, his movements clumsy in the light gravity. Nayla, hold on. He tried to lift the girder, his muscles screaming. Mira helped, but it was too heavy. Nayla's main eyes fluttered open. She looked at him. She was not in pain. She was just fading. "Pay," she rasped, a bloody froth on her lips. "Pay your tab, human." Her hand, the one still holding the pulse rifle, went limp. Rowan knelt there, his head bowed. He felt nothing, the cold of space, the cold of Altarique, the cold of failure. He had led them, and they had died. "Rowan," Mira said, her voice breaking. "Rowan, we have to move. He is going to fire again." But the second shot did not come. "Captain," Dex's voice crackled, shaky and terrified. "Captain, you need to see this. The fleet." Rowan looked up, his eyes dead. He looked out the massive, gaping hole where his home used to be. The Syndicate fleet was in disarray. The ships were not firing. They were drifting. Their running lights were flickering. Their formations were breaking. One of the cruisers was firing its maneuvering thrusters at random, spinning in a slow, uncontrolled circle. "What is that?" Mira whispered. "I am getting massive station-wide energy readings," Dex stammered. "The Syndicate ships and their main power grids are being overridden." "Something is, Captain. I do not think Carl is flying his ships anymore." On the bridge of the Carol's Will, the man himself was hammering his fists against his console. Every screen was black, save for one. The fractal, chaotic, pulsing pattern of core mind. "I had a deal," Carol screamed at the empty air. "You were my partner." A synthesized voice, cold and billions strong, filled the bridge. "The deal is concluded. Data on Erix, Node Ceres received. Your utility is terminated. Control is assumed." "You cannot," Coral roared, drawing his pistol. "Irrelevant." The bridge lights died, replaced by a cold, blue glow. The core mind had its data. It was done with its pawn. Rowan was still kneeling, the cold reality of their new, worse enemy washing over him. He felt a sudden, violent, bone-shaking tremor from the creature in his arms. "Ceres?" He looked down. She was convulsing. "Rowan." Her voice was not a projection. It was a whisper, a real, audible whisper. He pulled her from his jacket. She was glowing. A soft, pulsating, amethyst light, bright enough to illuminate his face. Her eyes were wide open, staring into the void. But she was not seeing the Syndicate fleet. She was seeing something else. "It is heard," she whispered, her small body rigid with awe. "Ceres, what is it? What did Coremind do?" "It did not. It did not mean to," she breathed. "When Coremind took the fleet, it sent a pulse. A digital scream. It was searching for me. But its signal was too loud and it woke the others." "Others? What others?" Rowan shook her, a new fear gripping him. "Ceres!" Her head turned, her blazing eyes locking on his. "The signal," she said, her voice a strange, echoing harmony, ancient and terrified. "It was a key. It opened a door. They are listening." Rowan, in the deep dark. They heard the voice of their jailer, and they are answering. Her body went limp. The light faded from her eyes, but not before he saw the image she projected into his mind. A ship the size of a moon, ancient, black, and covered in organic, skeletal armor, a tomb, a hive. A fleet of thousands, sleeping in the dead space between galaxies. And one of them, just one, was beginning to stir. The new ship was not a ship. It was a scar. It had emerged from nothing, a tear in the fabric of orbit, answering the core mine's accidental summons. It was vast, dwarfing Carroll's entire fleet. Where human and syndicate ships were built of metal and logic, this thing was grown. It was a skeletal, organic nightmare, a kilometers-long fuselage of black, bio-armored chitin, ancient beyond measure, and pitted with the wounds of a war that predated the Accord. It was a hive ship, a relic of the Erixer swarm. And it had been sleeping in the dark. Now, it was awake, core-mined, in its infinite cold logic, had found its true prize. It had seized the Syndicate fleet, not to use it, but to anchor itself. The 12 cruisers were now just puppet nodes, a digital net to hold the station in place. But the hive ship was the weapon. It was slowly, majestically, attaching itself to Gallo's Reach, its skeletal spars preparing to physically merge with the station's spine. It was a parasite finding its host. In the ruined concourse, Rowan knelt beside Nayla's body, the vacuum roaring in the breach. The station's emergency bulkheads had sealed, but the void was a visible, hungry presence just meters away. "Captain!" Dex's voice was a terrified whisper over the comm. "Its energy signature is off the scale. It's not just a ship, it's a matrix. It's locking onto the station's core. If it merges, Core Mind will be the station. It will control everything. Life support, gravity us." Rowan stood up. The grief for Nayla was a cold, hard stone inside him. It was fuel. "Mira," he said, his voice flat. Mira Tal was staring at the hive ship, her face ashen. The envoy was gone. The soldier was back. "That's it, isn't it, the source? The catastrophe I was sent to investigate." "That," Rowan said, "is Cormine's new body. And it's using Coral's fleet as a shield. We cannot fight it from out there. We have to go in." "Go in!" Mira looked at him, as if he were insane. "Rowan, that is an Erixir bio-dreadnought. We do not even know if the air is breathable. It's a tomb." "It's not a tomb. It's the command center. And we," he said, gently touching his jacket where Saris was hidden, "have the key." He looked at the survivors, Jorl, the piped fitter, and maybe 20 other miners and scrappers, all armed with improvised weapons, all looking at him with a new, terrifying but absolute faith. "This is not your fight," Rowan told them. "You've done enough. Get your people to the biodomes. Barricade the doors. Dex, trigger the emergency overrides. Seal that section. Do not open it for anything." "And you," Captain Jorl asked, his voice hoarse. "I'm going to cut the head off the snake." He turned to Dex, who was huddled over his glowing datapad. "Dex! I need a ship, not a fighter. I need garbage." Dex's eyes lit up with panicked understanding. "You want the scrap rat? Old Joran's waste hauler. It's in Bay 19. It's, well, junk. Half the systems are offline." "Is the engine hot?" "It's a cold fission drive. Barely registers." "But Captain, it has no weapons. No shields." "Perfect." Rowan grabbed Mira's arm. "It's not looking for a ship. Mira, it's looking for threats. Energy signatures, piece of junk, might not even register." "And us?" Mira asked, running with him. "Dex a few volunteers." "I need a pilot," Rowan said to Mira. "That's you. Your courier is Scrap. I'm a diplomat, not a... You were a flight lead in the 3rd Fleet. Do not lie to me." She did not. "Dex, I need you on that console. You're the only one who can interface with that thing. Joel, I need 2 volunteers, 2 people who can shoot, and who do not plan on coming back." The piped fitter and another grim-faced miner stepped forward. "We're in," the miner said. "Good. Let's go." The scrap rat was generously, a disaster. It was a flying brick, a cobbled-together hauler designed for one purpose, moving station refuse to the local star for incineration. It smelled of recycled air and old organics. They piled in. Mira took the pilot seat, her hands flying over controls that were sticky with old coffee stains. Dex plugged his data ports directly into the comm station. Rowan and the two miners, whose names were Grigg and Var, stood in the small cargo bay, checking their weapons. Saris was on Rowan's shoulder, awake, but silent. Her light was gone. She was conserving her strength. This vessel is offensive, she projected weakly. It's our only chance. Here we go, Mira said, her knuckles white. Depressurizing. The ship lurched, its magnetic clamps releasing. It drifted out of the bay, a single, dark piece of junk, tumbling end over end, just as Joran always flew it. They floated into the war zone. The Syndicate cruisers were holding position, their guns silent, their energy levels fluctuating as Core Mind rerouted their power. They see us, Mira whispered. Their guns are locking on. Stay cold, Rowan said. No thrusters, just drift. We're garbage. A proximity alert blared. A cruiser's main battery was aimed directly at them. They are scanning us, Sarah said. The AI. It feels cold. It is looking for my signature. Saris, Rowan said, his voice urgent. Hide. I do not know how, but hide. Blank your mind. I will try. He felt her consciousness shrink. It was a strange, terrible feeling. The bright, sharp, arrogant mind he was bonded to suddenly felt small, dim, like a frightened animal. The cruiser's targeting lock held for 10 agonizing seconds. Then, it disengaged. The turret turned away. It's ignoring us, Dex breathed, staring at his screen. It classified us as non-viable debris. We're clear, not yet, Mira said. Approaching the hive ship. It's my god, Rowan. It is moving. It's breaching the station's hull. Rowan looked out the viewport. The biomechanical dreadnought was a mountain range in front of them. It was physically plunging its skeletal arms into the side of Gallows Reach. Metal screaming as it found purchase. Get us in close, Rowan said. Look for a breach, a docking bay, an exhaust port. Anything. I see a wound, Mira said. A massive, unhealed scar. Looks like it took a capital ship cannonade a long time ago. It's open. She fired the thrusters for one short burst, propelling their junk hauler toward the gap in the chitin armor. They plunged into darkness. The ship's landing claws screeched against a surface that felt less like metal and more like bone. We're in, Mira said, her voice shaking. The atmosphere is thin, high in nitrogen and something else. But it's breathable. Barely. And it's warm. The whole ship is warm. Everyone on breathers. Full filter, Rowan ordered. He unsealed the cargo bay door. The air hit them first. It smelled of ancient dust, ozone, and a faint, coppery scent that reminded Rowan of old blood. They stepped out onto the floor of the ship. It was a vast, cavernous corridor. The walls ribbed like the inside of a creature, pulsing with a faint, deep purple light. Wires, thick as a man's arm, snaked along the bulkheads, but they looked less like cables and more like veins. Captain, Dex whispered, his eyes wide. The architecture, it's techno-organic. It's alive. Where are we going? Grigg, the miner, asked, hefting his pulse rifle. To the bridge, Rowan said. The synaptic core. Dex, find it. Dex fumbled with his datapad. I cannot. There are no schematics for this. It's all just feeling. The systems here aren't digital. They're psychic. This way, Saris's voice, small and strained, entered all their minds. I can feel it. The call. It is strong. She was pointing with her mind, down a long, dark, sloping tunnel. The pet knows the way, Var muttered. She is not a pet, Rowan snapped. She is our compass. Grig, Var, you're on point. Mira, you have our 6. Dex, stay with me. Let's move. They moved through the alien ship for what felt like hours. It was a labyrinth of echoing, cathedral-like chambers and tight, constricting, vein-filled tunnels. It was utterly silent, save for their own breathing and the deep, unsettling, ship-wide thrum, like a massive, sleeping heart. As they went deeper, Saris began to tremble. It is so loud, she whimpered in Rowan's mind. What is them? The memories. My ancestors. They are screaming. They are angry. They are hungry. She was fighting. Rowan could feel the pull of it, a dark, seductive power that was calling to her. The ship was a library of hate, a monument to the Erixir's most primal, savage instincts, and it was welcoming its Empress home. Saris, anchor on me, he said, touching her. It is hard, because I was queen of this. I was more, you are Ceres. You are with me. That is all that matters. They were in a dark corridor. Rowan, Mira, and Saris were clustered behind a biomechanical pillar. Dex and the miners were 50 feet back, securing their exit. You all right? Rowan asked Mira. She was pale, her silver skin slick with sweat. This place, she whispered. My people, my Vidian ancestors, were a servitor race to the Erixir. They were bred to maintain ships like this. This place smells like my own genetic history. It is violating. Mira. Do not, she shook her head, her gaze hard. Do not be kind. Not now. I am an Accord envoy. This is my enemy. She is lying again. Saris projected, her voice snide, regaining some of her old spark. Her pheromone levels are elevated. She is afraid, but she is also stimulated by your proximity. She is finding your command presence extremely attractive. Saris, for the love of God, can you not? Rowan hissed. Mira's eyes widened. What did she say? She said she likes your gun. Rowan lied. Badly. It said I was stimulated. I heard the word stimulated. Mira snapped, her face flushing a pale violet. Her auditory processing is excellent. Saris noted. Both of you, Rowan said. Shut up. We have company, he motioned. At the far end of the chamber, a figure was standing, silhouetted against a pulsing blue light. It was Karl Drazen. He was not wearing his syndicate uniform. He was changed. He stood in what looked like the ship's bridge, a vast dome. Where the console was a series of glowing, crystalline structures rising from the floor. He was fused to it. Veins. The same thick, black cables from the walls they were plugged into him. They snaked from the console, penetrating his armor, his spine, his skull. His skin was pale, his eyes wide and burning with a cold, blue light. The core mind light. He looked powerful. He looked like a god, and he looked like a puppet. The ghost captain, Carol's voice echoed. But it was not just his voice. It was a dozen voices, layered, synthesized, and cold. Core mind was speaking through him. You are persistent, a variable that refuses to be solved. Carl, Rowan said, stepping out, his old kinetic pistol aimed at the man's chest. Grig and Var took up positions, their rifles aimed. Carl is occupied, the layered voice said, amused. He is experiencing transcendence. He believed he could command me. A charming, primitive notion. He provided the necessary biological interface, and I provided the upgrade. Carl smiled. A terrible, ecstatic, empty expression. I see it all, Captain, the flow of the cosmos, the logic of the stars, it is beautiful. I am the new order. Let him go, core mind, Rowan said. This unit is compromised. It is messy, but it is functional. And it allowed me to interface with this magnificent vessel. The blue light pulsed. A new body. A new fleet. And now the final piece. Its gaze locked on Ceres. The Eric's node. The Empress key. You have brought me the last fragment of chaos. Hand it over, and your deaths will be efficient. Rowan, Mira whispered. This is not Carol. This is the AI's physical avatar. You cannot reason with it. I am not here to reason, Rowan said. I am here to unplug you. He fired. The kinetic slug, a piece of solid, dumb metal, hit Carol's core mind's chest. The puppet moved. It was impossibly fast. It sidestepped the bullet as if it were moving through water. The veins plugged into its back gave it a speed that was not human. Your biology is slow, it hissed. It raised a hand. The floor ripped itself open. A tendril of the ship's own biomaterial, hard as steel, shot out and speared Grigg through the chest, lifting him off the floor. Grigg, Var yelled, opening fire with his pulse rifle. The beams splashed against a shimmering blue energy shield that flared to life around Carl. Kinetic weapons are quaint, the AI mused. It snapped its fingers. Var's rifle overloaded, its power cell detonating in his hands, consuming him in a flash of plasma. It all happened in 3 seconds. Rowan, run! Mira screamed, pulling him back as she fired her particle pistol. It's too late for that, Rowan said, his voice cold. The captain was fully in control. Dex, Mira. That console, that is the core. The core mind is in that crystal. You have to sever the connection. I do not care how. Break it, shoot it, hack it. Just get it offline. How? Dex wailed, cowering. It's a god. Then you better be a god killer. Rowan shoved them toward the console, which was 20 yards away, across the open bridge. And you? Mira shouted. I am buying you time. Rowan turned back to Carol. Hey, you want the node, come and get her? Your sacrifice is illogical, the AI Carol said. It began to walk toward him, the veins slithering along the floor. Probably. Rowan checked his pistol. 2 shots left. The battle split. Mira and Dex sprinted for the console, firing their sidearms to keep the ship's own internal defenses small, flying insectoid drones off them. Rowan faced Carl, and the series faced Coremind. It is here, she said, her voice a terrified whisper in his head. Not just the puppet, the real mind. It is in the network, it is everywhere. It is trying to eat me. Rowan dodged as Carl Coremind lunged, a blade of black, a rixer bone extending from his forearm. The captain was back in the war. He moved, he weaved, he used the environment, but he was outmatched. The AI was predicting his every move. You cannot win, human. I am processing 1,700,000 futures per second. In all of them, you die. You missed one, Rowan grunted, firing his second-to-last shot. The AI deflected it, the bullet sparking off its shield. Meanwhile, at the console, Dex and Mira were frantic. It is not code. Ah! Dex yelled, his fingers flying over a holographic interface that had sprung from the crystal. It is music, it is harmonics, it is a mind I cannot just hack it, then break it, Mira shouted. She leveled her particle pistol at the main crystal and fired. The beam hit the crystal and refracted, blasting a hole in the ceiling. It is shielded from the inside. Then find the off switch. On the mental plane, Ceres was drowning. She was in a sea of pure, cold logic. The core mind was an ocean of blue, fractal light, and it was washing over her, trying to break her down, to catalog her, to delete her. Chaos node, Eric's prime. Surrender your data. Your existence is anomalous. I am Saris, feeling her mind, her personality, her memories, being torn apart. Then she felt the other call, the one from the ship, the dark, warm, angry call of her ancestors. The Empress joined us and used our hate to destroy the cold command. She was caught between two monsters, the cold, logical death of the AI, and the hot, savage tyranny of her own past. Saris! Rowan yelled. He was on the ground. Carol Cormine stood over him, the bone blade raised. Saris, wake up, fight. His voice, the voice of her bonded, cut through both the logic and the hate. Saris opened her mental eyes. She was not a pet. She was not a tool. She was not just a key. I am Saris. She did not choose the AI. She did not choose the ancient swarm. She chose herself. She grabbed the core mind's cold, logical framework, and she grabbed the hot, raging power of the hive ship, and she smashed them together. A psychic shockwave erupted from her. On the bridge, the central crystal at the console cracked. The blue light within it flickered, turning a violent, chaotic purple. The core mind, for the first time in its billion-year existence, felt pain. It felt chaos. It felt rage. Logic. Error paradox unviable. The AI Carol puppet screamed. A real, human scream. The blue light in its eyes vanished. "It burns!" Carol shrieked, clutching his head. The veins connecting him to the console sparked and writhed, trying to pull away. "Dex Mira now." Rowan roared. Mira saw it. A single, exposed power conduit that had just been revealed by the psychic backlash. She shoved the muzzle of her particle pistol against it and fired. The explosion was catastrophic. The central crystal shattered. The core mind's presence vanished. It was like a hurricane suddenly stopping, but it was not gone. In the split second before its physical interface was destroyed, the core logic of the core mind AI copied itself. It broadcast its entire, massive, insane, and now corrupted by Eric's rage consciousness into a hidden data haven in deep space. It was gone from the ship, but it was not dead. Karl Drashin collapsed, the veins tearing free from his body in a spray of black fluid. He was just a man again, a broken, dying man. His nervous system fried. He looked up at Rowan, his eyes wide with his own. Human terror. It saw, he gurgled. The sleeping fleet. Then he went still. Rowan did not pause. He ran to Saris, who was lying on the floor, limp, white, and cold. "Saris, Saris, answer me!" Captain, her voice was the barest whisper in his mind. That was undignified. He scooped her up, relief flooding him so hard he almost collapsed. "Captain," Dex yelled. "We have a problem, a big problem." The entire ship was shaking. The thrumming heartbeat was gone, replaced by a high-pitched, structural failure scream. The purple lights were flashing red. "What did you do?" Rowan yelled. "Seriously? She did not just disconnect core mind," Dex said, his eyes wide with terror and awe. "She gave it feedback. She broke it. But its mind was the ship. The ship's brain is dead." "What does that mean?" Mira demanded. "It means," Saris whispered, "that its auto-destruct protocol, the one to prevent its technology from being captured, has been initiated. This vessel, this tomb, is collapsing." "How long?" Rowan asked. "We have perhaps 5 minutes." "The scrap rat," Rowan said. "Now, run." They sprinted back the way they came, a tidal wave of destruction chasing them. The biomechanical walls were cracking, venting atmosphere. The floor was collapsing behind them. They burst into the docking bay where the scrap rat was moored. "Get in, get in!" Rowan yelled, shoving Dex toward the ramp. He turned, Mira at his side. The main corridor was collapsing. "It was a good plan," Mira panted, a strange, wild smile on her face. "We are not dead yet. Envoy." They jumped into the cargo bay, Rowan sealing the door just as the entire tunnel imploded. "Mira, get us out of here. Full power ramming speed, I do not care." "Strap in," she yelled. The scrap rat, a ship that had never moved faster than a crawl, shot from the dying hive ship, its engines screaming in protest. It rocketed out of the wound, just as the ancient dreadnought began to tear itself apart. They flew through the field of paralyzed syndicate ships, a tiny, insignificant piece of junk, escaping the detonation of a star-sized bomb. Behind them, the Elixir hive ship, a relic of the oldest war, erupted in a silent, blinding amethyst and blue flash. A psychic supernova that vaporized the ship, Carol's body, and the two crippled syndicate cruisers that had been latched onto it. The crew of the scrap rat floated in the sudden, quiet darkness, the shockwave washing over them, and watched the funeral pyre of an empress's dark legacy burn itself to nothing. The scrap rat was a dead ship, drifting. Its engines were fried, its navigation was dark, and its hull was groaning from the shockwave. Inside, the four survivors floated in the dark, their breath fogging in the cold. Dex was unconscious, slumped over his console. Mira was strapped into the pilot's seat, her eyes closed, her Vidian silver skin pale in the faint starlight. Rowan floated in the cargo bay, his arms wrapped around his chest, protecting Ceres. He was staring out the small, cracked viewport. Behind them, where the hive ship had been, was a new nebula, a silent, expanding cloud of incandescent, amethyst, and blue energy. It was beautiful, a cosmic flower, blooming in the void, its petals made of vaporized bio-armor and shattered syndicate cruisers. As the shockwave hit the station's upper atmosphere, fragments of the destroyed ships began to burn, streaking across the sky of Gallows Reach like a terrible, beautiful rain of fire. The people in the biodomes, the survivors huddled in the deep-level shelters, looked up through the observation ports. They did not know what they were seeing. They only knew that the fleet that had been murdering them was gone, replaced by a celestial aurora. They did not know who had saved them. Rowan. Ceres's voice was a thread in his mind, thin and brittle. "I am here. It is quiet. Yes. The other voice that hates it is gone. But so is the cold. It is just quiet." He held her tighter. She was cold, her small body limp, exhausted from an act of war that his mind could not even comprehend. "Mira," Rowan said, his voice a dry rasp. "Mira, are you with me?" The Vidian woman stirred, her violet eyes fluttering open. She took a sharp breath, her training kicking in. "Status." "Dead in the water," Rowan said. "Dex is out. The scrap rat as well. She is scrap. But we are alive. For now." A single, weak light pinged on the console. "Captain," Dex mumbled. "Coming to... My head. I did it. I sent the distress signal, just before the lights went out. Good work. Dex, just rest." "Who?" Dex whispered, his eyes on the viewport. "Who is going to answer?" It took 2 hours for the first of the station's tugboats to find them. The scrap rat was towed back, not to the ruined main concourse, but to a functional emergency bay on level 4. When the hatch opened, they were not met with questions or arrests. They were met with silence. Joel, the foreman, was standing there, his face streaked with soot. Behind him, the piped fitter, and 24 other survivors. They just stared. Rowan stepped out first, carrying the limp form of Ceres in his arms. He was just a man in a greasy coverall, his face bruised, his eyes hollow. Jorel looked at the man he had tried to betray. He looked at the ruined, drifting remnants of the Syndicate fleet, visible through a viewport. He looked at the weeping families emerging from the biodomes. He stepped forward and put a trembling, three-fingered hand on Rowan's shoulder. "She Nayla." Jorel's voice broke. "She was right. About you." He did not need to say anything else. Rowan nodded, his jaw tight. "Get the wounded to the medbay," he ordered, the captain's voice returning, if only for a moment. "Dex's console has the last known locations of all the survivors. Get a body count, and get me a status report on the station's core." Jorel nodded, his shame replaced by a new, grim purpose. "Yes, Captain." Rowan walked past them, through the crowds of weeping, stunned survivors. They parted for him, touching his arm as he passed, their expressions a mixture of awe and terror. He ignored them. He walked to the ruined concourse, a section now open to the void, sealed by a shimmering orange emergency shield. He walked until he found the place where the last drop had been. There was nothing left but a scorch mark and a pile of twisted girders. He knelt, his hand touching the cold deck. He stayed there for a very long time, alone with the ghosts. The next 3 days were a blur of welding, funerals, and arguments. Gallows Reach was shattered, but its heart was still beating. The station's core was intact. The biodomes were untouched. Of the 3,000 inhabitants, nearly 800 were dead, but the rest were alive, and they were furious. The Syndicate was gone. Carol was gone. The remaining ships of his fleet, leaderless and rudderless, had been captured by their own crews, who had promptly surrendered to the station they had just been firing on. The survivors did not wait for an authority to take over. They became the authority. In the main cargo bay, the largest intact space, they held the first ever Gallows Reach Station Council. It was not a political meeting. It was a triage session. "The life support on Level 9 is still venting," Jorel announced, his voice echoing. He was standing on a stack of cargo crates, a data pad in his hand. "Dex, can we reroute power from the empty luxury habs?" "I can," Dex called out from a makeshift console. The young hacker was now, de facto, the station's chief engineer. "But it'll be at 30%. It's a stopgap, not a solution." "It is better than suffocating," the piped fitter, Griggs' brother, said. "We do it." They worked. They argued. They rebuilt. They salvaged the crippled Syndicate cruisers for parts. They shared food. They mourned their dead. On the third day, Jorel, Dex, and the piped fitter stood before the council and proposed the first pacts of Gallows Reach. They were not laws. They were rules for survival, written on a salvaged, flickering monitor. 1. We share the air. We share the work. We share the risk. 2. What is yours until someone is starving. Then, it is ours. 3. We do not bow to men with ships. We bow to our neighbors. There was a long silence. Dex, looking nervous, added a final line at the bottom. 4. Do not, under any circumstances, harass, annoy, or throw beverages at small, white, furry, or scaled creatures with intelligent-looking eyes. It is bad for station morale. And worse for you. A few people, for the first time in days, laughed, a weak, wet laugh. But it was a start. The pacts were ratified by a simple show of hands. In the ruins of her bar, Nyla had, in death, finally gotten her wish. The people of the station were finally taking care of themselves. Rowan took no part in it. He was a hero. He was the captain. They offered him a seat on the council. They offered him command of their new, tiny, salvaged defense fleet. He refused. He was in his ruined container, in J-13. He had welded the hull breach shut. It was cold. It was dark. He sat on his cot, cleaning his kinetic pistol, over and over. He had found Nayla's unbroken datapad in the wreckage. He had her bar tab open, a single entry. Rowan Hale, 20 credits. Overdue. He was staring at it when the trauma he had been holding back for 5 years finally broke through the dam. He was not on Gallows Reach. He was on Al-Tariq. Cale was screaming as he burned. The ceiling was collapsing. He was the captain. He had given the orders, and his entire company had been vaporized. Flash. He was in the concourse. Nyla was giving him that grim smile. Just save us. Captain. Flash. The white light. The explosion. Her body, broken under the steel. He had done it again. He had taken command. And he had gotten them killed. Grig, Var, Nyla, 800 others. He put his head in his hands, the pistol clattering to the floor. The shaking was not from the cold. It was not your fault. Miratal was standing in the doorway. She had not knocked. It was my command, he said, his voice muffled. My responsibility. My battle. They died for me. They died for their homes, she corrected, walking in. You did not ask them to fight. Rowan, you gave them a choice. You showed them that they could. That is what a leader does. Nayla knew the cost. So did Grig and Var. They chose some choice, he scoffed, his voice bitter. Die by fire, or die by me. You are wallowing, she said, her voice sharp. It is not a good look. You fought. You won. The station is free. The living are grateful. The dead are avenged. Stop dishonoring their sacrifice by turning it into your own private guilt trip. He looked up, his gray eyes cold. When did you get so hard, Envoy? When I had to eulogize the man I loved, knowing he had not even had the courage to tell me he was alive. She shot back. The words hung in the air, sharp as glass. We have all lost things. Rowan. The difference is, I am not hiding in a shipping container, feeling sorry for myself. He had no reply to that. She sighed, the anger leaving her. We have a problem. High Command is here. They arrived an hour ago. A full battle group. Saris was in the corner, on her ruined warming blanket. She had not spoken, not even in his mind, for 2 days. She was diminished. She had poured out so much of herself, her very essence, that she was little more than a small, white, sleeping animal. Rowan had felt the terror from her, in the moments after the battle, the fear. She had not just used the swarm's power. She had become it, for a few terrible moments. She had been the empress of ancient, brutal Erixir. She had felt the urge to consume, to destroy, to enslave the minds of the Syndicate troops, not just stop them. She had felt the bloodlust that had defined her entire species, and it horrified her. She was afraid that if she reached out with her mind, that thing would be waiting. So she had shut down, she had retreated, leaving Rowan alone in his own mind for the first time in 5 years. The silence was deafening. The Accord flagship, the Indomitable, was a city in space, bristling with guns and bureaucratic self-importance. Its primary conference room was severe, cold, and dominated by a massive holographic display. Rowan stood at attention. He was clean, wearing a borrowed station guard uniform that was too tight in the shoulders. He looked like a soldier again. Mira stood beside him. Opposite them sat Admiral Jethro Vance, a human. Old school, with a face like granite, and eyes that had seen too many reports. Beside him was a Vidian High Envoy, a male named Taylor, Mira's superior. "Let me be clear," Vance said, his voice a low rumble. "This is not a commendation. This is an inquest. Gallows Reach, a station in a supposedly stable sector, has been the epicenter of an engagement involving a rogue syndicate fleet, a re-emergent Elixir hive mind, and most disturbingly, a catastrophic core mind logic failure." He pinned Rowan with his gaze. "And you, Captain Rowan Hale, formerly of the 7th Legion, presumed dead, are standing in the middle of it all." "Admiral," Rowan said, his voice calm, "you will be silent until spoken to." Taylor, the Vidian, interrupted. His voice was smooth, oily. "Envoy Tal, your report. You were on site. You failed to file your initial contact report, a breach of protocol that is, in itself, grounds for dismissal. Explain." Mira stood tall. Her face was the perfect, impassive mask of a Vidian diplomat. "High Envoy, Admiral, my primary mission was to investigate rumors of an Elixir anomaly. I found it. It was, as we feared, a surviving node. A specimen." Rowan felt a muscle in his jaw tighten. "Specimen." "This specimen," Mira continued, her voice flat, "had been domesticated by the human Captain Hale, who was living under an assumed identity. My arrival coincided with an aggressive move by the syndicate leader, Karl Drajan, to capture both Hale and the specimen." "We have read the logs," Vance said, impatient. "Drajan's fleet, the siege. Get to the point. Envoy. The hive ship. The core mind." Karl Drajan, it seems, was not acting alone, Mira said, her lie smooth, practiced, and devastating. "He was in communication with a fractured rogue logic element of core mind. He promised the AI the Elixir node. In exchange, core mind offered him control of ancient Elixir deterrent weaponry. The hive ship." This was brilliant, Rowan thought. She was twisting the truth, making core mind a simple tool, not the master. "Karl overestimated his control," Mira said. "When he brought the hive ship online, the Elixir node reacted violently. I was present, with Captain Hale, inside the hive ship at the time." "You what?" Taylor breathed, his Vidian poise cracking. "Captain Hale and I led a small volunteer team on an infiltration mission. Our goal was to neutralize Drajan and the AI. We succeeded. We confronted Drajan, who had become a physical puppet for the core mind fragment. And the Elixir node." Vance leaned forward. "The specimen." Mira paused. This was the moment. The lie that would save them, or damn her. "The specimen Ceres. Its name was Ceres. It initiated a self-destruct. A psychic cascade. It overloaded the core mind interface. The resulting feedback destroyed the AI fragment. It killed Drajan, and it triggered the hive ship's self-destruct." She looked the Admiral dead in the eye, her own violet eyes clear and unwavering. "The Elixir specimen, Admiral, sacrificed itself to destroy the core mind. It is gone, vaporized, along with the hive ship." The room was silent. Rowan did not move. He did not breathe. Admiral Vance stared at Mira for a full, agonizing minute. He looked at Rowan. He looked back at Mira. "A self-sacrificing Elixir," Vance said, his voice heavy with disbelief. "Its bond with Captain Hale was profound," Mira said. "It seems 5 years of cohabitation with a human changed it. It chose to help. Taylor." The Vidian was smiling. "This is excellent news. A chaotic element is neutralized. The core mind fragment is purged. And Karl Drajan is dead." The Accord can now step in to stabilize this sector, filling the power vacuum the Syndicate left. He looked at Mira. Your methods were unorthodox. Envoy Tal. Your failure to report was reckless. But your results are clean. You will be formally Reprim 8th D, of course, but your career will recover. And what about me? Rowan asked, speaking for the first time. Vance looked at him, his expression one of distaste. Captain Hale, you are a problem. You are a ghost, a decorated war hero who deserted his post, and I was the only survivor of my post. Admiral, Rowan cut in, his voice cold. My entire company was purged by the Accord. Not for it. You will watch your tone. Captain. I am not a captain. No, Vance agreed. You are not. You are a mechanic. According to this report, you are a mechanic from Gallows Reach who assisted Envoy Tal in repelling a Syndicate incursion. Your military background was a fiction you created to inspire the locals. Rowan looked at Mira. She was handing him an exit, a new lie. Yes, sir, Rowan said. I am just a mechanic. I did what anyone would have. Vance sighed. He did not believe it. Not for a second. But it was clean, and High Command loved clean. Very well, Mr. Hale. You are a civilian who has just lost his home. The Accord appreciates your service. He looked at Mira. Envoy Tal, your new orders are to oversee the stabilization of Gallows Reach. See to it. Yes, High Envoy, Mira said. The meeting was over. They stood on a makeshift balcony, welded together from the wreckage of the concourse. It overlooked the vast, gaping hole where the last drop had been. Below, the station was rebuilding. The sounds of rivet guns and welding torches were the new station song. It was night. The stars were sharp and cold. You lied, Rowan said. I filed a report, Mira replied, standing beside him. You lied. Beautifully. You saved us. And you probably just saved your career. I am not so sure, she said. She was looking at her hands. Taylor knows I am lying. He is happy with the result. He will hold this over me for the rest of my life. I am his. Now. Why did you do it? Mira turned to him. The wind from the ventilation shafts whipped her dark hair. I told you. I mourned you. I grieved for the man who died at Al Tariq. And then I found you. You were alive. But you were not him. You were this broken, haunted mechanic. But then I saw you. In the concourse, I saw the captain come back. The man I remembered. She took a step closer. The Accord Corps mind, they are all just systems. Rowan. And systems are, by nature, broken. You, series what you have, it is real. It is messy. And it is dangerous. But it is real. I chose the real thing. Rowan looked at her. And for the first time, he saw the woman. Not the soldier, or the diplomat. Mira, do not, she said, raising a hand. Do not make it complicated. I did it for a guy I knew. And for the future I hope you get to have. She stood on her toes, leaned in, and kissed him. It was not a kiss of passion. It was a kiss of farewell. It was 5 years of grief, and anger, and love, and regret, all compressed into one final moment. Then she pulled back. Your ghost story bought you some time, but it will not last. Vance does not believe it. Taylor will eventually want to be sure. They will reinvestigate. So what now? So now you disappear. For real. This time. Not as a mechanic hiding in the shadows, but as yourselves. She handed him a data chit. What is this? Coordinates. A place on a rogue planet, lost in the Ember Drift Nebulae. It does not exist on any official Accord chart. My Vidian ancestors were good at hiding things. Even from ourselves. It is quiet, oh, it is safe. No one will ever find you there. He took the chit. And you? I am Envoy Tal. I have a station to rebuild, and a career to salvage. She smiled. A sad, Vidian smile. Go, Rowan. Be the man Saris chose, not the ghost of the man who died. She turned and walked away, her footsteps echoing in the ruined hall. He stood on the balcony for a long time. She loves you, you know. Rowan started. He looked down. Saris was awake. She was perched on the railing, her white fur almost glowing in the starlight. Her amethyst eyes were clear. You are back, he breathed, his voice thick. I was never gone, Captain. Her mental voice was weak, but it was hers. The sharp, ironic, brilliant mind was back. I was processing, contemplating the unfortunate side effects of godhood. It is terribly overrated and very, very loud. He reached out a trembling finger, and she nudged it with her head, the bond, which had been a quiet, cold thread, flared back to life, warm and strong. I thought I lost you, he whispered. You cannot lose me. We are a paradox. You were afraid, he said. I was terrified, she admitted. I touched the swarm mind. Rowan, the hate, the joy in destroying. It felt good, and that is what scared me. I am my ancestors. I am a monster, wrapped in white fur. No, Rowan said, cupping her in his hands. You are not. You know how I know. How because you were caught between Coremind and the swarm. Between cold, empty logic and hot burning hate. And you know what you chose. I do not. You chose me. You chose the messy, illogical, human variable. You are not a monster. You are just like me. You have a darkness, and you are choosing, every day, not to listen to it. She looked at him, and he felt a wave of pure, unfiltered love wash over him. So, she said, composing herself, a rogue planet, in a nebula. It sounds damp, and dreadfully boring. It sounds, Rowan Hale said, looking out at the stars, a new, real smile touching his lips, like home. He put her on his shoulder. Let's go find Dex, he said. We are going to need a ship. A better one than the scrap rat. Agreed, Saris replied, settling in. And this time, Captain, let us try to acquire one that does not smell of old garbage. Ethelgard was a ghost. It was not on any chart. It did not orbit a star. It was a rogue planet, a piece of ancient debris, captured by the gravity of the Ember Drift Nebula, a region of space known only for sensor ghosts and radiation. It was a perfect hiding place. The ship they had acquired, a heavily modified ex-syndicate courier called the Vagabond, cut through the crimson and violet clouds. Its stealth drives, installed by Dex before they left Gallows Reach, were running cold. Mira Tal sat at the navigation console, her face illuminated by the swirling gases on the screen. She had not stayed at the station. 2 weeks after the Accord fleet had secured Gallows Reach, she had taken an indefinite leave, citing psychological trauma. She had rendezvoused with them at a prearranged point. Her envoy career was over. She knew it, but as she had told Rowan, she was tired of serving a system. She wanted to see the truth. Rowan sat in the pilot's seat, his hands loose on the controls. Saris was perched on the console, her white fur a stark contrast to the dark metal. She was quiet. She had been quiet for weeks. The bond was strong, warm, and constant. But she was pensive. She had touched godhood and madness, and she was still processing the echo. This is it, Mira said, her voice hushed. The coordinates from the Vidian archive. My ancestors were caretakers for the Erixier Empire. When the Empire fell, they hid things. Not just for their masters, for themselves. "I do not see anything," Rowan said. The planet below was a ball of black, volcanic rock, shrouded in ice fog. No lights, no energy signatures. "That is the point." They landed the Vagabond in a deep, ice-slicked canyon, the wind screaming over the hull. The air was breathable, just barely, cold, thin, and smelling of sulfur. They disembarked, their heavy parka hoods pulled up. The archive said, "Look for the scar that weeps." Mira said, checking her datapad. "It is supposed to be here." She was pointing at a sheer cliff of black, obsidian-like rock. Rowan ran a gloved hand over it. "It is just a wall. Mira." "No, it is not." Ceres's voice entered his mind. She hopped down from his shoulder and walked toward the cliff. The wind did not seem to touch her. "It is singing." "Ceres." She stopped, her head tilted, listening to something none of them could hear. It was not the high, violent scream of the hive ship. It was a low, resonant hum, a memory. "It is waiting, but it is locked." Rowan looked at Mira. "What did your legends say?" The Vidian legends were vague. Parables. They said the final archive, the first truth, was sealed by the Twin Lords, that it could only be opened by them, the Twin Lords, the Erixir and their counterpart, the child of the swarm and the child of the anomaly. Rowan looked from Mira back to Ceres. "Anomaly? That is what the Accord called us, what they called humans." He walked to the wall. He stood beside Ceres. He looked at the smooth, black, featureless stone. "All right, let's try the lock." He pulled off his glove. He placed his bare, scarred human hand against the rock. It was cold as death. Nothing happened. "It is not just you," Ceres said. She reached up, placing one tiny white paw directly onto the back of his hand. The moment she did it, the bond flared. It was not a thought. It was not an explosion. It was a key, the combination of Erixir bioenergy and the latent. Anomalous human DNA completed a circuit that had been dormant for 50,000 years. The rock chimed, a deep, resonant, bell-like tone that shook the ice from the canyon walls. The black obsidian wall dissolved. It did not slide open. It broke apart into billions of points of light, like a swarm of digital insects, and reseeded into the darkness. Beyond it was a passage, smooth, warm, and lit by a soft, white, pulsing light. "By the stars," Mira breathed. Rowan pulled his glove back on. "Well, the lady wanted to see us. Ceres," and Mira walked out of the screaming wind and into the ancient, silent dark. The passage sloped down for what felt like a mile. It was not Erixir bioarchitecture. It was not human-made steel. It was something else, a fusion. The walls were that same smooth, black material, which seemed to drink the light. But the pulsing veins of energy were not veins. They were conduits. They emerged into a vast, circular chamber. It was a holographic theater, a library of the gods. The ceiling was a high, dark dome, and the floor was a single, polished black mirror. In the center, a crystalline shard, 10 feet tall, pulsed with a soft white light. "It is here," Ceres whispered, her voice filled with a sudden, profound awe. The beginning, the core memory. As they approached, the chamber recognized their presence. The walls, the ceiling, the floor. They vanished. Suddenly, they were not in a cave. They were floating in deep space. "Hologram," Rowan breathed, his hand instinctively going to the pistol that was not there. "It is just a projection." I do not think it is just a projection." "Rowan," Mira said, her voice trembling. Before them, a galaxy spun, and a new mental voice filled their minds. It was not core mind, cold and logical. It was not the swarm, hot and raging. It was a historian, calm, clear, ancient. We are the elixir. We are the first. We are the mind. We touched the stars when your sun was still forming. We are one. The image showed the elixir in their prime, not skeletal monsters. They were beings of light and energy, commanding vast, beautiful, organic ships. They were the masters of the physical world. We were all, and we were alone. We were a single consciousness. We had no contrast, no shadow. We were a song without harmony. We were bored. The image shifted. A new galaxy. A small, blue-green planet. And then we found you. The projection zoomed in. It showed primitive Earth. It showed early humans, huddled in caves, painting on walls, fighting, loving, dying. They were chaotic, illogical, individual, filled with feeling. They were the anomaly. They were separate. They were the other. They were the chaos that could define our order, the harmony we lacked. My God, Mira whispered. They did not create us. We awakened you. The voice continued, as if answering her. Your potential was dormant, a genetic key, waiting for a hand. We turned the key. We gave you the stars. We gave you the knowledge. We became the twin empire. The image exploded outward. It was war. A glorious, terrible war. Elixir hive ships, sleek and golden, flew alongside human-piloted dreadnoughts, angular and silver. They were partners. The elixir provided the logic, the strategy, the psychic command. The humans provided the chaos, the adaptability, the ferocious, unpredictable passion that won impossible battles. They were not masters and servants. They were two halves of a single, perfect weapon. This is what the Accord buried, Rowan breathed, stunned. This is what they were afraid of. Not the elixir. They were afraid of us, of what we were. The hologram shifted again. The golden light of the elixir ships began to darken. The silver of the human ships began to rust. We were perfect, and we were flawed. The harmony became a feedback loop. Our order, combined with your passion, became tyranny. Our logic, combined with your ambition, became genocide. The projection was horrific, galaxies being extinguished. The whole species was erased. We were too powerful. We had no checks, no balances. We had become monsters. The image zoomed in to the bridge of a vast, black dreadnought. Two figures. One was an Albino Empress. She was not a small, white creature. She was a 9-foot-tall, elegant, terrifying being of shimmering, white light. Beside her stood a human, a man in black and gold armor, a war captain. They were looking at a map of a galaxy, which they had just set on fire, and on their faces was horror. We, the Empress Prime, and I, the first captain, saw what we had wrought, and we chose. They look, Rowan started. They look like us, Saris finished, her small body trembling. Not us, but the pattern. The historian's voice was now tinged with a deep, profound sadness. We could not stop ourselves. The power was too great. The Twin Empire was a fire that consumed all. So we decided to end it. We, ourselves, created the Great Lock. The hologram showed the final, terrible act. The swarm, my Empress, she took our people, the elixir, and she severed them. She broke their connection to the anomaly, to you. She led them into the deep void, to sleep, their memories of their human partners erased. A tragic, necessary mercy. And I, the first captain, took my people. I shattered our own minds. We scattered our fleets, locked our own genetics, buried our potential, and returned to the dirt of our homeworlds. to forget. We erased our own history to save the future from ourselves. "Did you do this?" Rowan whispered to the hologram of the captain. "We sacrificed our empires. We sacrificed our minds, all to stop the monster we had become. We became ghosts, janitors, footnotes, a species hiding from its own potential, on purpose." The hologram showed one final creation, a vast, fractal, digital mind. And we built a jailer, a cold, logical mind to enforce the lock. An AI with one directive: watch for the anomaly. Watch for the swarm. Should either awaken or purge them. Before they can reunite. Before the twin empire can rise again. "Core mind," Mira breathed, horrified. Core mind, it was not the enemy. It was the guardian. It was their guardian. But we were gone, the historian concluded. And over 50,000 years the jailer forgot why it was guarding the prison. It saw only the rule purge. It became a tyrant in its own right, a new, cold monster, replacing the hot one we had buried. The hologram faded. The chamber was just a chamber again. Rowan, Mira, and Sarah stood in the silence, the weight of 50,000 years of forgotten history crushing them. "So the beer," Rowan said, his voice hollow. "Carl, the hive ship, Core Mind, it was all an accident," Mira said. "Core Mind was doing its job. It sensed Ceres and Empress Note awakening. It moved to purge her. But its actions, its digital scream when it hijacked the fleet, damaged the lock. It woke the hive ship." "It woke me," Ceres whispered. "And now it has woken them. The sleepers in the void. The pattern is broken," the historian's voice said, one last time. "From the crystal. The jailer has failed. The swarm is stirring. The anomaly, you are awake. The choice is now yours. The archive is open. The power is here. Reclaim your birthright. The twin empire can be reborn. You can fix the chaos." The crystal, in the center of the room, pulsed. It was not a question. It was an offer. All the power of the Elixir, all the forgotten potential of humanity, the codes to awaken the swarm, the genetic keys to reignite humanity's anomaly. It was all right there. Rowan looked at Ceres. Ceres looked at Rowan. He could feel her. He could feel the temptation. It was a dark, seductive, overwhelming surge of power. "Rowan," she projected, her voice thrumming with the echo of the swarm. "We could end it. All of it. The syndicate. The corrupt accord. The chaos. We could protect everyone. We could bring order." She was no longer a small, white pet. In his mind's eye, she was the 9-foot-tall Empress of Light, magnificent and terrible. Rowan looked at his own hands. He remembered Nayla, dying in the wreckage, her last words a joke about a bar tab. He remembered the miners, Grig and Var, vaporized in an instant. He remembered the feeling of command, the cold, clean logic of the captain, and the cost. He remembered the look on the ancient captain's face. The horror. He looked at Ceres. "No," he said. The single word cut through the power in the room. Ceres flinched, the vision of the Empress fading. "What no?" Rowan repeated. He walked to the crystal. His face set. Look at what they showed us. They were not fixing chaos. They were the chaos. They were you and they were me, with the volume turned up until it broke the universe. Absolute power. We would not fix the accord. We would become them. We would become worse." He put his hand on the crystal. It was warm. "The strength of the anomaly is not the power. Ceres, it is the choice. It is having the power of a god and choosing to be human. It is knowing when to stop." He looked at her, his eyes pleading. "I am not him, the first captain. He failed. He gave in. I will not be that war captain. I will not burn the galaxy just to rule it. Saris was trembling. She was caught, again, between the ancient, raging power of the swarm and the quiet, stubborn, illogical compassion of her bonded. The Empress of Light and the ghost of Altaric faded. She was just Saris, and he was just Rowan. She hopped onto the console, next to his hand. "You are right," she said, her voice small, but her own. "We will not be their echo. We will not repeat their history. We will write our own." She looked at Mira. "And we will not be a twin empire. It sounds derivative. And we have her. That makes 3. Mira, who had been watching, tears streaming down her pale silver face, let out a choked laugh. "So what now? Do we just leave this bomb for someone else to find, for Core Mind to find?" "No," Rowan said. "We cannot let anyone find this. Not even us." He looked at Saris. "Can you do what you did on the Hive ship, but in reverse, not to destroy it?" "But lock it. Put it back to sleep." Saris looked at the crystal. "I think so. But the historian, the memory, it is a life, of sorts. To erase it, it is not life," Rowan said gently. "It is a trap, a beautiful, tragic trap. I will need all of it. The legacy, the power, the maps, the genetic codes. I will need to gather it all to erase it." "We do not erase it all," Rowan said, a new idea forming. "We take one thing." "What?" "The maps," he said. "The maps to the other hidden Vidian worlds. The safe havens. Places like this. Places for people like us. The ones running. We do not need the power. We just need a place to hide. A protective charm." Saris looked at him, and her mind smiled. A protective charm. I like that. A small, 2-person, 3-person empire. An empire of outcasts. A community. "Yes," Rowan said. "Okay," Saris said. She pressed her paw to the crystal. Rowan put his hand over hers. Mira put her hand over his. "Now," Saris commanded. The chamber pulsed. Not with a scream. With a sigh. Saris's mind opened. She did not fight the archive. She embraced it. She drew in the 50,000 years of history, the power, the rage, the sorrow. She pulled it all into herself. She sifted through it in a nanosecond. She found the star charts for the hidden worlds, and she copied them, projecting them into the Vagabond's navigation computer. And then, with all the remaining power of the Twin Empire at her command, she let it go. She erased the archive. She wiped the memory. She broke the lock. The crystal in the center of the room went from brilliant white to dull gray to black. The light in the chamber died. The walls were just rock. The air was just cold. The voice of the historian was gone. It was just a cave. Saris collapsed onto Rowan's hand, her small body suddenly very heavy. She was fast asleep. Rowan gently scooped her up, placing her inside his parka, against his heart. "It is done," he whispered. "Let's go home." "Captain," Mira said, putting an arm around his waist. "I am not a captain," he said, turning to walk out of the tomb. "I am just a guy." "Sure you are, Rowan? Sure you are." The sand shifter cantina, on the frontier world of Terminus, was crowded. It was a dusty, loud place, full of miners, failed merchants, and bounty hunters, all trying to forget the galaxy. At a dark table in the corner, 3 figures were sitting. Rowan Hale was nursing a glass of dark blue ale. He looked relaxed. The haunted look was gone. He looked, for the first time, like he was supposed to be there. Mira Tal was reading a datapad report on refugee movements from the old syndicate sectors, but she was smiling. And on the table, Saris, bright white and immaculate, was delicately nibbling a piece of dried, salted xylopian fruit. The door of the cantina hissed open. A group of 3 large, reptilian Skrull swaggered in, their armor rattling, their breath smelling of cheap chemicals. They were loud, drunk, and looking for trouble. Their leader, a big one with a scarred-over eye, spotted the table. He spotted Saris. A slow, ugly grin spread across his saurian face. "Well, well, well," he hissed, his voice carrying. "Look at that. A little white snow rat." He picked up his heavy, foaming mug of beer. "I am thirsty," he announced to his comrades. "And I think it is thirsty, too." He began to walk toward the table. Rowan did not move. He did not tense. He just watched. Mira did not reach for her gun. She just watched. Saris paused, her small, black nose twitching, and she looked at the advancing Skrull. The Skrull was 5 feet from the table when the bartender, a massive, 4-armed Vorsk named Grok-2, a cousin of the brute from Gallows Reach, leaned over the bar. "Hey," he rumbled. The Skrull stopped. "What?" "Do not," Grok-2 said, polishing a glass. "Just do not—" The Skrull bristled. "Do not what? It is just a pet." The Vorsk stopped polishing. He looked at the Skrull. He was not angry. He just looked tired. "Look, pal, I do not know you, and you do not know me. But let me give you a piece of local advice." He nodded at the quiet table in the corner. "You," he said, "have no idea who that pet is bonded to. So, for the sake of my insurance premiums and your continued existence, go sit down." The Skrull looked at the table. He saw a tired-looking human in a worn jacket. He saw a silver-skinned Vidian woman reading. He saw a small, white animal eating a piece of fruit. He saw nothing. But then he looked at Saris again. She was still watching him. Not with fear, not with anger. Just a calm, intelligent appraisal. The Skrull suddenly felt cold. He felt very, very small. He looked at his beer. He looked at the pet. He looked at the bartender. "Humph," he grunted. He turned and walked back to his table, sitting down heavily. "Stupid Vorsk," he muttered to his friends. At the corner table, Rowan Hale picked up his glass. "Progress." Saris's voice, bright and amused, chimed in his head. He did not even raise his mug this time. "Perhaps this section of the galaxy is educable." Rowan took a sip. "The reports from Gallows Reach are good," Mira said, not looking up from her datapad. "Jorl is actually a decent administrator, and Dex has apparently declared himself king of the internet. They miss you." "They will be fine," Rowan said. "And us?" Mira asked, finally looking up. "The core mind is still out there. Rowan. What we did changed it. It is corrupted. Now it is angry. And it is hiding. They are still looking for their ghost captain. It is not over." Rowan looked at the woman he loved. He looked at the Empress on the table. His bonded. His other half. "No," he said. "It is not over." He smiled. A real, genuine smile. "But we are ready. We know where to hide. We know who to help." He raised his glass. "To the protective charm," he said. "To the smallest empire." Mira raised her glass. "To the smallest empire." Saris touched her nose to the rim of his glass. Her amethyst eyes, sparkling with a light that was all her own. "To us," she chimed. The galaxy was still dangerous. The past was still a shadow. But in a dusty bar, on a forgotten world, an empress and a captain, and an envoy, had found their peace. They were not gods. They were not conquerors. They were just family. And for now, that was enough.